Dr. Paul Janssen was a Belgian physician and a legendary figure in the field of pharmacology. Born on September 12, 1926, in Turnhout, Belgium, he founded Janssen Pharmaceutica, a company that would go on to develop numerous groundbreaking medications, including the potent opioid fentanyl. Janssen was inspired to pursue a career in medicine due to the influence of his father, a successful general practitioner. The tragic death of his 4-year-old sister from tubercular meningitis solidified his resolve to dedicate his life to medical research. Janssen's academic journey began in Namur, Belgium, where he studied physics, biology, and chemistry during World War II. He later attended the Catholic University of Leuven and Ghent University, earning his medical degree in 1951. He earned a postdoctoral degree in 1956. In 1953, with a loan from his father, Paul Janssen established his own research laboratory in Turnhout. His early work led to the discovery of ambucetamide, an effective antispasmodic for menstrual pain. This success laid the foundation for Janssen Pharmaceutica, which he officially founded in 1956. One of Janssen's most significant contributions to medicine was the development of haloperidol in 1958, a major breakthrough in the treatment of schizophrenia. However, it was his work on fentanyl that would have a lasting impact on pain management and, unfortunately, on public health due to its potential for misuse. In 1959, Dr. Janssen synthesized fentanyl based on structure-activity relationship studies of meperidine. Fentanyl was found to be approximately 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine, making it an extremely effective analgesic for use in surgical anesthesia and the management of severe pain. Under Janssen's leadership, Janssen Pharmaceutica expanded globally, becoming part of Johnson & Johnson in 1961. The company continued to innovate, developing over 80 new medications, 4 of which are on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines. In 1985, Janssen Pharmaceutica became the first Western pharmaceutical company to establish a factory in the People's Republic of China. Dr. Paul Janssen's contributions to pharmacology earned him numerous awards and honors, including more than 80 medical prizes and 22 honorary doctorates. In 1991, he was elevated to the Belgian nobility, receiving the title of Baron. Janssen passed away on November 11, 2003, in Rome, but his legacy lives on through the Janssen Pharmaceutical Companies and the Dr. Paul Janssen Award for Biomedical Research, established by Johnson & Johnson in his honor. Fentanyl, primarily used in operating rooms as an anesthetic and for managing severe pain in cancer patients, was introduced as an intravenous anesthetic under the brand name Sublamaze. Over the years, various delivery methods were developed, including patches, lozenges, and nasal sprays, broadening its use in pain management. While fentanyl's medical benefits were clear, its potency also made it a target for misuse. In the early 2000s, illicitly manufactured fentanyl began to appear on the black market. This was driven by its high profit margins and the ease of synthesizing it compared to other opioids like heroin. Much of the illicit fentanyl was initially produced in China and then trafficked through Mexico into the United States.
We're tracking a troubling story in New Britain. That's where a 1-year-old baby boy nearly died after ingesting fentanyl at a park. State officials tell us that earlier this month, the child was eating a cookie and dropped a piece of it on the ground. When picking it up, he also grabbed a piece of plastic with traces of fentanyl on it, and he put it in his mouth. Paramedics rushed to the park. They were able to revive the boy with naloxone, which is something that state leaders believe everyone should have.
People need to understand that they need to carry it on them. They need to be aware that this is a possible outcome for a kid like this kid who was just in the park, right? It needs to be in schools. It needs to be where children are playing and around because fentanyl is in a lot of places that it shouldn't be.
Hundreds of people die from drug overdoses in Connecticut every year. Since 2020, 12 children under the age of 5 have died from ingesting fentanyl.
The opioid crisis in the United States began with the overprescription of opioid painkillers in the 1990s. As regulations tightened and prescriptions became harder to obtain, many users turned to heroin. Fentanyl entered the scene as a cheaper, more potent alternative. It was often mixed with heroin or pressed into counterfeit pills, leading to a significant increase in overdose deaths. By 2016, fentanyl and its analogs had become the leading cause of opioid overdose deaths in the United States.
What did she take? Did she take fentanyl?
I don't know.
Did she
took
take
a lot
heroin?
of something, and I don't know what it was.
Go grab Narcan. I've got one.
I don't know what it was. I told her not to.
She took the same thing. That's
Jesus, please. Ryan!
Washa 1 North
Ryan,
31.
no.
It's because we have an
Hey,
overdose.
she's out.
We have a
She's out
second
too.
person that just OD'd in the house.
Help her! Somebody please!
I need another police.
Help her!
Go to the police.
He's on the way. He's on the way.
Calm down.
Just tell me where it
Yeah,
is.
give it to them!
She's still breathing.
You okay? I know.
Please step outside, ma'am.
I need to go, yeah.
Washa 1 North 31. We have a third overdosing. No, they are not. Just Washoe County right now. She's got a slow pulse. She's the only one that hasn't been Narcan yet, and she was the last to pass out.
71 copy. Dispatch, you copy the request. Dispatch, copy. I'll go ahead and put in for another.
In response to the growing crisis, various strategies were implemented to combat the spread of fentanyl. The U.S. government increased efforts to detect and seize illicit fentanyl shipments, particularly at the border. The Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, and Customs and Border Protection, CBP, have been pivotal in these efforts, utilizing advanced chemical analysis and intelligence, sharing to track and intercept fentanyl and its precursors. Fentanyl continues to be a significant public health challenge. Over 70,000 Americans die from fentanyl overdoses each year, a number that has steadily increased over the past decade. Efforts to curb this trend include increasing access to treatment for opioid use disorder, expanding the availability of naloxone, a medication that can reverse opioid overdoses, and implementing stricter regulations on the production and distribution of fentanyl. Fentanyl's history is a complex tale of medical innovation turned public health nightmare. While it remains a critical tool in pain management, its potential for misuse and the resulting human toll cannot be ignored. Continued efforts from medical professionals, law enforcement, and policymakers are essential to mitigate the impact of this potent drug on society. Welcome to this in-depth look at Project 2025, a controversial initiative that's been making headlines in recent months. Today, we'll explore what Project 2025 is, its goals, and why it's causing such a stir in political circles. Project 2025 is a comprehensive blueprint for the next Republican presidential administration, spearheaded by the Conservative Heritage Foundation. This initiative is composed of 4 main pillars: a detailed policy guide for the next administration, a LinkedIn-style database of potential personnel, training programs for candidates, dubbed the Presidential Administration Academy, a playbook of actions to be taken within the first 180 days in office. At the heart of Project 2025 is a nearly 900-page policy book titled Mandate for Leadership 2025, The Conservative Promise. This document outlines an extensive overhaul of the federal government touching every corner of the executive branch. The project is led by former Trump administration officials, including Paul Dawn, who served as Chief of Staff at the Office of Personnel Management, and Spencer Creighton, a former special assistant to Trump. It's worth noting that Dawn stepped down from his role in August 2024. While the Heritage Foundation is at the helm, Project 2025 involves an advisory board consisting of more than 100 conservative groups. A complete list of these groups can be found in the description of this video below. Many of the policy recommendations come from familiar names in the Trump administration, such as Russ Vought, Chris Miller, and Roger Severino. Next up, let's delve into some of the most significant policy recommendations outlined in Project 2025. The plan calls for significant changes to healthcare policies, including withdrawing the abortion pill mifepristone from the market, eliminating mandated insurance coverage for emergency contraception, prohibiting funding for patients traveling across state lines for reproductive health care, maintaining a biblically based, social science-reinforced definition of marriage and family. Project 2025 takes a strong stance against climate change initiatives, cutting federal money for research and investment in renewable energy, ending the so-called war on oil and natural gas, repealing and eliminating preventive climate change initiatives, replacing carbon reduction goals with increased fossil fuel energy production. The project proposes several changes to economic and social welfare programs, cutting and restricting the use of food stamps and social welfare programs, creating more eligibility requirements for Medicaid, implementing a two-rate individual tax system of 15% and 30%, reducing corporate income tax rates, and canceling federal student loan forgiveness programs.
What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
On immigration, Project 2025 advocates for immediately deporting unaccompanied children, increased funding for a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border, implementing fees for asylum seekers, pausing funding for non-governmental immigration groups, replacing the current immigration system with a merit-based approach. In addition, Project 2025 proposes disbanding federal agencies like the Department of Education and the Department of Homeland Security. It also recommends privatizing others, such as the Transportation Security Agency. Project 2025 has faced significant criticism from Democrats and some moderate Republicans. Critics argue that the plan is too extreme and would lead to a dramatic overhaul of the federal government that could harm vulnerable populations. It's important to note that while Project 2025 is often associated with Donald Trump, the former president has tried to distance himself from some of its proposals. Trump has even called some of the recommendations abysmal. As we approach the 2024 presidential election, Project 2025 remains a focal point of political discourse. Whether you view it as a comprehensive plan for conservative governance or a controversial overreach, its potential impact on American policy cannot be ignored. Remember, while Project 2025 provides a roadmap for a potential Republican administration, its implementation would depend on numerous factors, including election results and the political landscape post-2024. Today, Oxford Street pulsates with enticing neon signs and is packed with tourists from all over the world. For 25 years, however, this well-known street featured a different landmark. A man dressed in green overalls who got worked up lecturing anyone that might be listening about eggs, peas, and desire. The gentleman holding the sign is Stanley Green. Mr. Green was part street prophet, part performance artist, and decades ahead of his time. From 1968 to 1993, he delivered London's most unusual public health campaign, with a dash of social critique and a dose of visual pop art. Stanley was born in 1915 into a middle-class family living in Haringey. He possessed a quiet and reserved nature, and his personality was generally solemn and serious. Even as a young boy, Stanley preferred spending his time tinkering with and repairing machines than engaging in social activities with his peers. In his adolescence, he became fascinated by human biology. But this wasn't just casual curiosity. This was a curiosity of high expectations. Green thought that the human body was a machine that needed to be strictly regulated. Stanley enlisted in the military in 1938. The experience appalled him. He encountered a lot of coarse talk. He decided to form an anti-obscenity campaign that would prevent future soldiers from having to go through the same discomfort he had when joining the military.
I really don't care for the way you're speaking to me.
And I really don't care for the way your company left me in the middle of fucking nowhere with fucking keys to a fucking car that isn't fucking there. And I really didn't care to fucking walk down a fucking highway and across a fucking runway to get back here to have you smile at my fucking face. I want a fucking car right fucking now.
To quote Mr. Green, I resolved to find why men become beasts. The answer lay in their diet. After his mother's 1967 death, 53-year-old Stanley launched his life's work. Using a homemade printing press, he created pamphlets warning against 8 passion proteins. This is the homemade wooden leaflet box carried by Stanley Green when selling his self-published booklets in Oxford Street and the West End. When he died in 1993, the London Museum acquired his placards and a complete set of his hand-printed booklets, 8 Passion Proteins with Care. Each morning, Stanley cycled 12 miles from his Ealing council flat. His routine was military precise. 5 o'clock, oatmeal breakfast, 1/2 egg ration. 6:30, pamphlet packing. 7 o'clock, 2-hour bike ride to Oxford Street. 9:30 to 6:30, pacing his beat between Marble Arch and Tottenham Court Road. At peak, he walked 15 miles daily, burning those dangerous protein calories. Lunch came from a thermos, usually vegetable stew. Not all interactions were smooth. 2 obstruction charges and constant spitting attacks. Hence the green overalls. Green's manifesto blended Victorian morality with misunderstood biochemistry. Key passages from 8 Passion Proteins with Care reveal. Beware. Protein mania causes. Delinquent youths, divorce mills, crime waves. Protein wisdom brings. Happy homes, safe streets, strong minds. While extreme, Green accidentally anticipated modern concerns about meat overconsumption. Of course, we now know proteins don't cause lust, but his environmental arguments about resource-heavy meats were oddly prophetic. Stanley Green died in 1993, but walk Oxford Street today, and older Londoners still point where he stood. In our age of influencer marketing and viral trends, his analog persistence fascinates. Ironically, today's Oxford Street sells protein shakes where Green warned against them. One wonders, would he protest or finally feel vindicated?
Indianapolis, affectionately known as Indy, is the capital and most populous city of Indiana. It's a city that's managed to blend its rich history with modern innovation, creating a unique urban landscape that's truly one of a kind. In 1820, the Indiana General Assembly decided they needed a new state capital, and they wanted it smack dab in the center of the state. In 1821, surveyors Alexander Ralston and Elias Pimfordham were tasked with designing the new city. Ralston, who had previously worked with Pierre L'Enfant on the design of Washington, D.C., came up with a plan for a 1-square-mile town. This area, nicknamed the Mile Square, was bound by North, East, South, and West streets with Governor's Circle, now Monument Circle, right in the center. The first European Americans started settling in the area around 1819 or early 1820. On January 1, 1825, Indianapolis officially became the state capital. The first session of the Indiana General Assembly in the new capital kicked off on January 10, 1825. The National Road, which later became Washington Street in downtown Indy, was routed through the city in 1827. It connected Indianapolis to the rest of the country and helped spur its growth. But the real game changer came with the railroads. The first railroad reached Indianapolis in 1847. By the time the Civil War rolled around in 1861, Indy had become a major rail hub. This was crucial for the Union's logistics during the war and really put Indianapolis on the map. Between 1860 and 1870, the population more than doubled. Thanks to its flat, fertile soil and central location, Indy quickly became an agricultural center. The White River provided power for early mills in the 1820s and 1830s, and with the railroads came manufacturing. As the city expanded, so did its government and civic organizations. In 1825, a United States District Court was created in Indianapolis. 2 years later, the state legislature appropriated $500 to construct a new facility for the Indiana Supreme Court. In today's dollars, that equates to around $14,000. Indianapolis immediately became a hub of political activity. In 1828, supporters of John Quincy Adams convened a state convention here. In 1859, Abraham Lincoln paid his first visit to the city. Speaking of Lincoln, the Civil War had a huge impact on Indianapolis. The city's strategic location and railroad connections made it a crucial logistics center for the Union. Camp Morton, a military training ground and later a prisoner of war camp, was established here. By the turn of the 20th century, Indianapolis was really coming into its own. In 1901, the Soldiers and Sailors Monument was completed on Monument Circle. This 284-foot-tall neoclassical limestone and bronze monument, designed by German architect Bruno Schmitz, became the symbol of the city. After the war, Indianapolis continued to grow and diversify. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw a boom in apartment and flat construction downtown. These new housing options were particularly popular with young professionals and women entering the workforce.
This is, and always will be, the greatest spectacle in racing. This is the Indianapolis 500! And Alex Palou leads very strong into turn one. Rinus VeeKay and Felix Rosenqvist with Scott Dixon going.
Now, we can't talk about Indianapolis without mentioning the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Opened in 1909, it's the home of the Indy 500, one of the most famous auto races in the world. The first Indy 500 was held in 1911, and it's been a Memorial Day weekend tradition ever since. Indianapolis continues to grow and evolve. The city became known for its strong manufacturing sector, particularly in the automotive industry. But it wasn't all work and no play. The city also developed a rich cultural scene. Take the Indianapolis Museum of Art, for example. Founded in 1883, it's now one of the largest encyclopedic art museums in the United States. Or how about the Children's Museum of Indianapolis? Opened in 1925, it's now the largest children's museum in the world. From the city's founding in 1821 to its current status as a thriving metropolis, Indianapolis has come a long way from its humble beginnings as a planned capital in the wilderness. It's weathered economic ups and downs, played a crucial role in major historical events, and continually reinvented itself to stay relevant in changing times. But we still have one more stop to make. The Sidmar, built in 1887, is a three-story, triangular, Italianate-style building that stands proudly in downtown Indianapolis. Its unique shape and architectural style make it a standout among the city's historic structures. It's located in the heart of downtown Indianapolis, an area roughly bounded by Interstate 65 and Fall Creek on the north, Interstate 65 and Interstate 70 on the east, Interstate 70 on the south, and Harding Street on the west. To truly appreciate the Sidmar, we need to understand the era in which it was built. The late 19th century was a time of tremendous growth for Indianapolis. This growth created a pressing need for housing, especially in the downtown area. Indianapolis was experiencing a boom in industrial development, led by the railroad and automobile industries, as well as companies like Eli Lilly. This economic growth attracted people from rural areas who were seeking educational, financial, and social advancement. And this is where the Sidmar comes in. Built in 1887, it's actually the oldest structure in a group of downtown apartments and flats that were constructed between 1887 and 1929. These buildings were a response to the city's rapid growth and changing housing needs. The Sidmar and buildings like it offered an affordable alternative for people moving to the city before marrying or having children. They were particularly attractive to single women entering the workforce, especially during World War I. Now, let's talk about the building itself. The Sidmar, like all the apartments built in downtown Indianapolis after 1904, is constructed of brick. This wasn't just an aesthetic choice. In 1904, the Indianapolis City Council passed an ordinance outlawing frame buildings within the downtown area. You'll also notice the use of Indiana limestone for lintels, sills, and decorative details, a common feature in these buildings. The Sidmar's triangular shape is particularly interesting. It likely reflects the original platting of the land, done in 1821. The square blocks formed by the intersection of major streets were divided by narrow alleys in a cross pattern, resulting in long lots with narrow street frontages. The Sidmar is part of what's known as the Indianapolis Wholesale District, which contains the largest concentration of 19th-century commercial buildings in the city. This district is a testament to the city's commercial growth, with many buildings transitioning from residential to commercial use in the 1860s. Eddie Girard, a man who defined hockey's golden age, and whose story's been buried under a century of ice. In the heart of Canada's capital, Ottawa, a legend was born. Edward George Girard, known to many as Eddie, would become one of hockey's earliest stars and a pivotal figure in the sport's history. On February 22, 1890, Eddie Girard entered the world. Little did anyone know that this Ottawa native would go on to leave an indelible mark on the game of hockey and become one of its first true stars. It was on the frozen ponds and in the newly built arenas that Girard would truly make his name. Girard's hockey career took off when he joined the Ottawa Senators in 1913. In his first game on January 28, 1914, against the Quebec Bulldogs, Eddie showed glimpses of the star he would become. Eddie wasn't just a goal scorer. He was a versatile player, starting his career as a left winger before transitioning to defense. This adaptability would become one of his greatest strengths. The press quickly took notice of Girard's talents. His speed, stick handling, and physical play made him a force to be reckoned with on the ice. As Eddie's popularity grew, global events were taking center stage. This was the era of World War I, and with so many athletes going overseas to fight, the sport was losing momentum. Gerard stayed home and kept the sport alive during that time period. His actions demonstrate how he and other athletes had to adapt to the circumstances of the day, or else risk losing a beloved part of their culture. In 1917, the landscape of professional hockey changed forever with the formation of the National Hockey League. Eddie Gerard was there from the beginning, ready to make his mark in this new era. In the NHL's inaugural season, Gerard showcased his offensive skills, finishing 8th in league scoring with 20 points in 20 games. But it was more than just his scoring touch that made Eddie special. Gerard's transition to defense proved to be a game-changer. Paired with the legendary Sprague Cleghorn, Eddie became one of the most formidable defensemen in the league. Cleghorn said of Gerard, "He was fast, he could stick handle, he was afraid of no man living, and had brains." But individual accolades weren't enough for Eddie Gerard. He was a born winner, and he proved it by leading the Ottawa Senators to unprecedented success. From 1920 to 1923, Gerard and the Senators, known as the Super Six, dominated the NHL. They won the Stanley Cup in 1920, 1921, and 1923. But Eddie wasn't done there. In a twist of fate, Gerard was called upon to be a replacement player for the Toronto St. Patricks in the 1922 Stanley Cup Finals. His performance was crucial in forcing a deciding game, which Toronto won, giving Eddie his 4th consecutive Stanley Cup. This incredible feat made Eddie Gerard the first player in history to win the Stanley Cup 4 years in a row. It's a record that stood for decades and cemented his place in hockey lore. But Eddie's contributions to hockey didn't end when he hung up his skates. After retiring as a player in 1923 due to a throat ailment, Gerard turned his attention to coaching and managing. Eddie's coaching journey took him from the Montreal Maroons to the New York Americans, and finally to the St. Louis Eagles. His greatest success came with the Maroons, where he led the team to a Stanley Cup victory in 1926. Gerard's coaching style was influenced by his playing days. He valued toughness, speed, and intelligence on the ice, the same qualities that had made him such a formidable player. Sadly, Eddie's career was cut short by the same throat issues that had ended his playing days. He retired from coaching in 1934, leaving behind a legacy that few could match. Eddie Gerard's impact on hockey was immense. He was a talented multi-sport athlete, a versatile hockey player, a 4-time Stanley Cup champion as a player, and a Stanley Cup winning coach. It's no surprise that when the Hockey Hall of Fame was established in 1945, Eddie Gerard was among the first 9 players inducted. His place in hockey history was secure. Today, Eddie Gerard's legacy lives on. In Ottawa, where he was born and where he starred for the Senators, his name is still spoken with reverence by those who know their hockey history. From the frozen ponds of Ottawa to the bright lights of the NHL, Eddie Gerard's journey is a quintessential Canadian story. American spiritualism represents one of the most fascinating religious movements to emerge from 19th century America, characterized by its revolutionary claim that the living could communicate directly with the dead. This movement, which first gained widespread popularity in the 1840s, fundamentally challenged conventional religious orthodoxy while simultaneously embracing elements of scientific inquiry, social reform, and individual spiritual authority. The foundations of American spiritualism were laid through the work of figures like Andrew Jackson Davis, dubbed the Poughkeepsie Seer, and the Fox Sisters of Rochester, New York, whose purported spirit communications catapulted the movement into national consciousness. Despite later confessions of fraud by key figures, spiritualism's influence extended well beyond its immediate adherents, intersecting with women's rights, abolitionism, and religious liberalization, while leaving an indelible mark on American cultural and religious identity that continues to resonate in contemporary spiritual practices. The movement began through the influential writings of Emanuel Swedenborg, an 18th-century Swedish philosopher whose theological works significantly transformed Christian perceptions of the afterlife. Swedenborg's revolutionary conception of heaven departed dramatically from traditional Christian theology, which had portrayed the afterlife as a distant, austere realm primarily populated by God and angels, with limited accessibility for ordinary souls. Instead, Swedenborg envisioned heaven as a more perfect version of earth where the spirits of loved ones have passed on and continue to exist in familiar forms. This reconceptualization made the afterlife more accessible and relatable to ordinary believers, establishing a theological foundation upon which spiritualism would later build its practices and beliefs. By the time spiritualist practices emerged in mid-19th century America, Swedenborg's teachings had already taken root, creating fertile ground for a movement that promised direct communication with departed loved ones. The appeal of spiritualism was further enhanced by its compatibility with the broader currents of American religious thought during the Second Great Awakening, a period characterized by religious experimentation and the emergence of numerous new faiths. The Burned-Over District of upstate New York, so named for the intensity of religious revival that swept through the region, produced several significant religious movements including Mormonism, Seventh-day Adventism, and various utopian communities. Unlike many of these movements that remained relatively contained, spiritualism rapidly expanded beyond regional boundaries to become a national phenomenon.
I want to answer the question of what is Swedenborgianism, which many people are not familiar with the church because we're quite a small tradition. But the church is founded after the mystic Emanuel Swedenborg, who was a writer and a thinker during the Enlightenment period. He spent most of his life as a scientist and an intellectual, and then when he was in his 50s, he turned inward and started having these deep meditative experiences where he describes his spiritual eyes were opened, and he has experiences of the other life, of heaven and hell, and he came back, and using all of his skills as a scientist, he kind of takes these meticulous notes and records everything that he saw, and there are many volumes that have been written about his experiences. So the church looks to his writings and kind of tries to understand who we are based on what he saw of heaven and hell. There's much I could share about the tradition. Kind of the few things that are really important to me are first that heaven and hell are a place, heaven in particular is a place for all people. It's not just people who live by a certain doctrine or a certain tradition, but it's all people who live lives by the best that they know. And this was really important to me as a person in this time in history with many, friends and family of different traditions. So heaven is this place where our salvation is not about prescribing to a particular doctrine, but it's an inner experience of opening to love and to understanding. The other part of Swedenborg's experiences was he did a deep exegesis of the Bible, and he uncovered these deep levels of meaning within the scriptures, this inner sense within the story. And that inner sense corresponds to our own spiritual development and life. And one way to describe it is there's this journey from the Garden of Eden in the book of Genesis to the Holy City in the book of Revelation. And all of the tales within the biblical story from the Hebrew scriptures and the New Testament are these ups and downs of the spiritual life, of freedom and captivity, of following the Lord through battles and challenges, and through that process coming to understand ourselves and our place in the grand design. So the tradition has a lot to do with spiritual growth, a recognition that we are kind of connected to the spiritual realm and that it's kind of peeking through the creation and all of the things that we see in the natural world and then also in the biblical story.
The catalyst that transformed these philosophical underpinnings into a full-fledged movement came in 1848 through the experiences of the Fox sisters in Hydesville, New York. This pivotal moment in spiritualist history began when the sisters claimed to have established communication with the spirit of a murdered peddler in their family home. The girls developed a system whereby the alleged spirit would respond to questions through a series of rappings or knocking sounds, establishing what would become the prototypical form of spirit communication in the spiritualist movement. The sisters insisted that the spirit identified himself as a peddler who had been murdered in their house by a previous tenant, creating a narrative that combined supernatural communication with a compelling story of justice from beyond the grave. News of these remarkable communications spread rapidly beyond Hydesville, creating such intense local interest that the girls were temporarily separated and sent to stay with relatives in nearby Rochester. Significantly, the mysterious rappings allegedly followed them to their new locations, with Kate staying with their older sister Leah in Rochester, while Margaretta resided with their brother David. This persistence of the phenomena beyond the original haunted house lent credibility to the sisters' claims while simultaneously suggesting that the girls themselves, rather than the house, were the conduit for spirit communication. This development would prove crucial in establishing the concept of the medium as an individual with special sensitivity to spirit communications, which became a central feature of spiritualist practice. The Fox sisters' spiritual demonstrations soon caught the attention of Amy and Isaac Post, a prominent Quaker couple deeply involved in various social reform movements, including abolition and women's rights. The Posts, who invited the Fox sisters into their Rochester home, provided both social legitimacy and access to their extensive network of progressive reformers. This connection between spiritualism and social reform would become one of the defining characteristics of the movement, establishing spiritualism not merely as a religious belief system, but as an impetus for social transformation. The Post's embrace of the Fox sisters helped to position spiritualism within the broader context of progressive reform movements that defined the pre-Civil War period in American history. Following its dramatic introduction through the Fox sisters, spiritualism expanded with remarkable speed across the United States during the late 1840s and throughout the 1850s. Moving beyond its origins in upstate New York, the movement gained significant followings in major urban centers and rural communities alike, spreading first throughout the Northeast and then westward. This expansion was facilitated by the development of a network of itinerant mediums who traveled extensively, conducting seances and delivering lectures on spiritualist philosophy. These traveling mediums functioned effectively as evangelists for the new movement, introducing spiritualist practices and beliefs to communities across the country while simultaneously adapting their presentations to appeal to local sensibilities and concerns. The rapid dissemination of spiritualist ideas was significantly enhanced by the emergence of dedicated periodicals that propagated the movement's teachings and reported on spiritualist phenomena. Publications such as the Shekinah, the Spiritual Telegraph, and the Spiritual Philosopher, edited by influential figures like S.B. Britton, William Fishbaugh, and La Roy Sunderland, created a sense of community among geographically dispersed believers while standardizing spiritualist doctrine and practice. These periodicals served both to introduce newcomers to spiritualist concepts and to provide experienced practitioners with accounts of phenomena observed in different locations, creating a shared body of evidence that bolstered believers' confidence in their experiences. The establishment of this spiritualist press marked an important step in the movement's development from localized phenomena to organized religion. By 1854, spiritualism had achieved sufficient organizational coherence to convene a national convention of spiritualists in New York, where delegates adopted a constitution founding the Society for the Dispensation of Spiritualist Truths. This formal organization represented a significant evolution for a movement that had initially emphasized individual experience and direct spiritual revelation over institutional authority. Lily Dale, located in southwestern New York State, stands as America's oldest and largest spiritualist community, where the belief in communication with the transitioned, not dead, has flourished since the late 19th century. This once small camp meeting ground has evolved into a vibrant spiritual center that continues to attract over 22,000 visitors annually, seeking connection with the spirit world through resident mediums and spiritual practices. Founded on principles born from the Fox sisters' spiritual communications in 1846, Lily Dale represents a fascinating intersection of religious innovation, social reform, and community growth that continues to thrive in contemporary America. Situated in the town of Pomfret on the east side of Cassadaga Lake, this location was ideal, about an hour from Buffalo and Erie, Pennsylvania, and just 30 minutes from Jamestown. It began as a summer camp for spiritualists, a place where folks could gather to explore spiritualism away from skeptical eyes. From its earliest days, Lily Dale was intended as a place to further the science, philosophy, and religion of spiritualism. The founders weren't just creating a retreat. They were establishing what would become the center of American spiritualist practice. The permanent population remains small. Even today, only about 275 people live here year-round. But from the beginning, the summer season transformed Lily Dale into a bustling center of spiritual activity, with visitors coming to experience this unique community. What made Lily Dale special was its intentional nature. This wasn't just a place where spiritualists happened to live. It was deliberately created as a community dedicated to spiritualist beliefs and practices. It brought together multiple strands of American cultural life: feminism, social reform, utopianism, and spiritual exploration. For spiritualists, death isn't really death at all. They typically avoid saying someone has died, and instead use the term transitioned, meaning the person has simply moved to a different cosmological plane. One of the most fascinating aspects of Lily Dale's history is how central music and sound were to their spiritual practices. Music wasn't just for entertainment. It was considered a critical tool for activating spirit communication. Spiritualists developed a whole philosophy around vibrational physics to explain why music was so effective in facilitating contact with spirits. They believed certain sounds and frequencies could literally bridge the gap between our world and the spirit realm. Today, just as in its early years, Lily Dale transforms during the summer season. The year-round population of about 275 swells dramatically as an estimated 22,000 visitors arrive to experience this spiritual community. They come for classes, workshops, church services, and demonstrations of mediumship. The credibility and social reach of spiritualism was substantially enhanced by the conversion of numerous prominent Americans who lent their reputations and public platforms to the movement. New York Senator Nathaniel P. Talmadge, New York Appeals Judge J.W. Edmonds, and influential newspaper editor Horace Greeley were among the notable public figures whose interest in spiritualism helped to legitimize the movement in the eyes of many Americans. These high-profile converts not only participated in seances and other spiritualist activities, but also publicly defended the validity of spirit communications, often citing their own experiences as evidence. Their testimonials were particularly persuasive given their established reputations for rationality and judgment, qualities seemingly at odds with uncritical acceptance of supernatural claims. The involvement of these respected figures contributed to spiritualism's appeal across class boundaries, allowing the movement to attract followers from both elite and ordinary backgrounds. While many religious movements of the era remained confined to specific socioeconomic groups, spiritualism developed a remarkably diverse following that included wealthy urban professionals, middle-class reformers, and rural farmers. This social diversity reflected spiritualism's unusual ability to address spiritual concerns common to Americans of various backgrounds, while adapting its practices to accommodate different social contexts and expectations. The movement's flexibility allowed it to maintain this broad appeal even as it developed more formalized structures and doctrines. Spiritualism's growth was further supported by its intellectual connections to other contemporary movements, including those founded by figures like John Humphrey Noyes, Robert Dale Owen, William Miller, and the Shakers, all of whom contributed either ideas or members to the new religion. These intellectual and personal exchanges created a rich environment in which spiritualist concepts could evolve and adapt, incorporating elements from various spiritual traditions while maintaining a distinctive identity. The resulting synthesis proved remarkably appealing to many Americans disillusioned with traditional religious institutions, yet unwilling to abandon spiritual beliefs entirely, positioning spiritualism as a modernized approach to faith compatible with progressive social values and scientific inquiry. One of the most revolutionary aspects of American spiritualism was its unprecedented elevation of women to positions of spiritual authority and public leadership. Unlike mainstream Protestant denominations that restricted women's religious roles, spiritualism actively encouraged female participation and leadership, particularly through the role of the medium. The movement promoted the belief that women were naturally superior as mediums due to their supposedly more delicate sensitive nervous systems, a notion that, while rooted in gender stereotypes of the era, nevertheless created unprecedented opportunities for women to exercise public religious authority. This theological justification for female leadership represented a significant departure from conventional religious practice and contributed substantially to spiritualism's progressive social character. The role of female mediums extended far beyond private seances into the public sphere, as women conducted public demonstrations of spirit communication and delivered lectures on spiritualist philosophy to mixed audiences. At a time when women's public speaking remained highly controversial, spiritualism provided one of the few socially acceptable platforms from which women could address audiences, including men. As noted in the historical record, for a time spiritualism was one of the only way that women were allowed to speak in public as acting as spiritualist mediums, with these women using this as a way to champion various causes. The public authority granted to female mediums thus challenged prevailing gender norms while creating opportunities for women to develop and demonstrate intellectual and rhetorical skills typically denied to them in other contexts. Spiritualism's commitment to social reform extended well beyond gender equality to encompass numerous progressive causes of the antebellum period. The movement developed strong connections to temperance, pacifism, women's rights, and educational reforms. These affiliations were not incidental but integral to spiritualist philosophy, which emphasized creating a social philosophy in which a man would be in harmony with nature, God, and his fellow man. Unlike some religious movements that focused exclusively on spiritual concerns or individual salvation, spiritualism explicitly connected spiritual development with social progress, positioning reform activism as a natural extension of spiritual enlightenment. The relationship between spiritualism and reform movements was mutually reinforcing, with many established reformers embracing spiritualist beliefs, while spiritualist circles became important venues for discussing and organizing reform initiatives.
So, Dr. Collins, you are a brilliant, brilliant scientist, the head of the Human Genome Project. Now, here's what's so puzzling is that you are the one scientist, the one famous scientist anyway, who's also religious. Explain that to me.
I would argue that if you look at the evidence, the historical evidence of Christ's existence is overwhelming.
What evidence? I mean, I've never even heard anyone propose that there's evidence.
When I read the New Testament, it reads to me as the record of eyewitnesses who put down what they saw and heard.
You know they weren't eyewitnesses.
They were close to that. They
No.
were within a couple of decades of eyewitnesses.
Okay. Would that stand up in a laboratory as absolute foolproof evidence that something happened?
A distinctive feature of American spiritualism that significantly contributed to its popular appeal was its self-presentation as a scientifically verifiable spiritual system. In an era increasingly characterized by scientific advancement and technological innovation, spiritualism positioned itself as the scientific religion compatible with modern knowledge rather than opposed to it. This framing responded to growing tensions between traditional religious beliefs and scientific discoveries by offering a middle path that claimed to satisfy both spiritual yearnings and demands for empirical evidence. Spiritualists argued that their practices could be subject to scientific verification through what they termed test conditions, controlled environments in which spirit communications could be observed and documented by objective witnesses. The scientific aspirations of spiritualism were evident in its extensive incorporation of contemporary scientific and pseudoscientific concepts. This scientific veneer provided intellectual respectability to spiritualist claims during a period when traditional religious explanations were increasingly questioned by educated Americans. The emphasis on empirical verification through mediumistic demonstrations conducted under test conditions represented a significant innovation in religious practice. Spiritualist seances frequently included elements designed to prevent fraud and ensure objective observation, such as binding or restraining mediums, conducting sessions in lighted rooms rather than darkness, and inviting skeptical observers to examine the physical environment before manifestations occurred. The influence of American spiritualism extended far beyond its formal adherence to shape broader cultural attitudes toward death, the afterlife, and the relationship between science and spirituality.
Nothing but the best and later for the rest. Right on.
It is a silent, humble hero that has shaped human civilization for millennia. It's more than just twisted fibers. It's a testament to our ingenuity, our resilience, and our endless creativity. From the earliest whispers of humanity to the high-tech marvels of today, yarn has been an unbroken thread connecting us all. Join me on an incredible journey through time, unraveling the fascinating, often surprising, and deeply human history of yarn. We'll discover its primal beginnings, the natural wonders it sprang from, the tools that transformed it, the revolution it ignited, and its enduring spirit in our modern world. Imagine a world without fabric, without cordage, without even a simple knot. Necessity, as they say, is the mother of invention. The very first spinners did not possess sophisticated tools. They utilized what nature provided, their own two hands. Early humans likely sat, perhaps by a fire, patiently rolling fibers, possibly from plant stems or animal hair, between their fingers or even along their thighs, coaxing them into a continuous strand. This seemingly simple act of twisting was profoundly transformative, creating something stronger and more versatile than anything previously known. This innovation was not solely about crafting garments. It was fundamental to survival. Stronger cords enabled the creation of better tools, snares, and fishing lines, eventually leading to the ability to bind objects together, marking a significant leap in human capability. The origins of this fiber twisting technique are believed to have emerged independently across various cultures long before the Common Era. The timeline for this ancient practice continually extends further back into prehistory. Archaeologists have unearthed twisted fiber remnants in southern France dating an astonishing 50,000 to 40,000 BCE, indicating that human ancestors were creating yarn even before the famous cave paintings of Lascaux. Even older evidence points to plant microfibers found on stone tools in Germany from approximately 300,000 years ago, suggesting an even earlier use of fibers. Before we continue, it's probably time to introduce you to some terminology that you're going to want to know the meaning of the further along we go. Class is now in session. Moisture wicking refers to the ability of a fabric to draw moisture away from the body and move it to the exterior of the material, where it can evaporate more easily. This property is particularly beneficial in outdoor and active wear, as it helps keep the wearer dry and comfortable during physical activities. Moisture-wicking fabrics work through a process called capillary action, which spreads moisture over a larger surface area, allowing for quicker drying. These fabrics are often lightweight and do not retain water like cotton, making them ideal for sports and exercise. Beats refers to the process of preparing flax plants for fiber extraction. Flax stalks, after being pulled from the ground, are tied into beats, which are bundles. Retting is a controlled rotting process in warm water to separate the inner stalk from the outer fibers.
I'll put it on the red and we'll... Put it down and you put stones in the top of it to keep it down. Keep it on here now for roughly up to 7 to 11 days, maybe more, according to what way. You take it out then and you take it out then and you break it. And if it breaks clean and the skin, the outer skin comes off it, that's ready for taking out and shredding. Then after that.
Following this, dressing involved breaking, scutching, and hackling the flax to clean and prepare the fibers for spinning.
The first step in this process is using a flax break to, well, break the core to free the fibers. As you can see, the flax is really stiff when you start and then softens more and more. Next up, you grab a scutching knife, or sword as we call them in Swedish, which I think is much more fitting and cool. And you use this knife to beat away the inner and outer bone from the fibers. Once the scutching is done, it's time to heckle the flax. This is the process that separates the tow from the desired fibers, and the tow is basically the short, crappy fibers and the small bits of wood still left. As you can see, we start off with bigger tines on the heckle and then move on to finer heckles as we go along. The tow is saved separately and can be used for, amongst other things, isolation. And yes, to those of you asking yourself this question, this is indeed where we get the expression heckle someone from.
Spinners often keep their fingers wet to prevent fuzziness, typically producing singles with an S-twist, which are then boiled to set the twist and reduce fuzz. This detailed process demonstrates an early understanding of material science and the ability to manipulate natural properties for desired outcomes. An S-twist refers to the direction of yarn twist, where the strands spiral upwards to the left, resembling the shape of the letter S when viewed from above. Wool is a protein-based fiber derived from the fleece of sheep. The wool was removed by shearing, ideally in one piece, avoiding second cuts that yield shorter, harder-to-spin fibers. Primitive breeds like the Scottish Soay sheep required plucking rather than shearing. After shearing, the wool underwent a rigorous cleaning process called scouring, traditionally using scalding water and urine to remove lanolin and dirt, though later methods involved washing soda or soap. The cleaned wool was then carded or combed to disentangle and align the fibers. The ability to process wool for various climates, from thick insulating fabrics to thinner weaves, highlights the adaptive nature of ancient textile production. Cotton is a soft, fluffy staple fiber from the Gossypium plant that was independently domesticated in both the Old and New worlds. The longest staple cottons, such as Egyptian varieties, were favored for spinning the finest threads. Early evidence of cotton in the Near East dates back 7,200 years, predating known domestication in the Indus Valley by 2 millennia, suggesting ancient trans-regional trade networks. A significant breakthrough arrived between 500 and 1000 CE with the invention of the spinning wheel, likely in India or the Middle East. This innovation mechanized the process by mounting the spindle horizontally and connecting it to a large, hand-driven wheel. The great wheel, an early type, required the spinner to hold the fiber in one hand and slowly turn the wheel with the other, walking backward to draw out and twist the wool, then forward to wind it onto the spindle. While excellent for soft, fuzzy wools, it struggled to produce the strong, smooth yarns needed for weaving. The introduction of the foot treadle in 1533, possibly in Brunswick, revolutionized spinning by freeing both hands, allowing for continuous operation while sitting. This led to the Saxony wheel, which also incorporated a flyer mechanism, a device that simultaneously twists the yarn and winds it onto a bobbin, dramatically speeding up production. The Industrial Revolution, beginning in the late 18th century, marked the most dramatic shift in textile production. Yarn shortages fueled a period of intense innovation. James Hargreaves' invention of the spinning jenny in 1764 or 1765 was a pivotal moment, allowing a single operator to spin multiple threads simultaneously, greatly increasing output. Richard Arkwright's water frame, 1771, further revolutionized the industry by using water wheels to power looms for cotton cloth production, laying the groundwork for the factory system.
I'm standing next to a machine called a water frame. It was created by the famous English inventor Richard Arkwright, this model's from the 1780s, to spin cotton into yarn. Though it looks fairly complex, it really isn't. It runs on water power, just like the carding machine and saw blades we saw earlier. The cotton in the top spools is drawn out by the action of the machine, which twists it nice and tight, and then gathers the yarn onto these bottom spools. It works just like a hand spinning wheel. 96 of them, actually. So it's little wonder that spinning by machine would eventually make spinning by hand obsolete. In no time, spinning mills began springing up all over England.
Samuel Crompton's spinning mule, 1779, combined the best features of the spinning jenny and the water frame, creating a machine that produced finer, stronger yarns with exceptional precision and greater productivity. Later, Richard Roberts' self-acting spinning mule, early 1820s, automated many processes, eliminating manual intervention and further boosting output. These inventions, including Robert Fulton's steam-powered flax spinner in 1795, propelled the textile industry into an era of mass production, nearly eliminating spinning by hand in Western textiles. The transition from individual craft to mechanized factory production, while boosting efficiency, also had profound social implications, transforming labor and urban landscapes. Yarn is more than just material. It's a profound cultural artifact, woven into the very fabric of human society. It has defined roles, driven economies, and told stories across civilizations. Culturally, textiles served as powerful communicators. In ancient Andean cultures, lacking written languages, textiles were the primary means of transmitting images and ideas. Clothing identified a person's gender, status, occupation, wealth, and community affiliation. The 20th century ushered in a new era of textile innovation with the development of synthetic fibers, driven by the desire to create materials that improved upon natural limitations or offered cheaper manufacturing. Early attempts in the 1800s focused on recreating natural silk, leading to the invention of artificial silk, later known as rayon, from mulberry tree bark. Rayon, known for its softness, moisture absorption, and dyeability, became widely popular.
Housemaid? Yes, we want to tell the class about it.
Well, it's quite a story. We make rayon from wood, you know, but, well, have you ever seen a spider spinning a web?
Oh, yes, of course.
Well, when we make this rayon fiber, we're imitating a spider spinning a web. The spider makes a liquid in its body. When it spins the thread for its web, it forces this liquid out through tiny holes called spinnerets. This makes a fine thread. Now, you know how silk is made?
Yes, we've had that.
Well, then you know how the silkworm makes a fiber. Now, we make this rayon fiber in somewhat the same way. Rayon begins as wood. The first step is to break up logs into pulp. This is done here at a pulp mill. In this mill, the wood is chopped up and cooked. It comes out looking like this. Here's a piece of wood pulp. This is still wood, though it looks like blotting paper. Now this goes to the rayon mill, where they put it into tanks. The pulp comes to the mill in large sheets. They put these sheets into a tank. Then they fill the tank with a chemical. After the pulp is soaked in this bath for a while, they squeeze out some of the chemical, and it's ready for the next step. They take it out and drop it down through a hole to the floor below. The pulp drops right down into a shredding machine. This machine breaks it up into small pieces. Over here's another shredder just like it. And this man is getting ready to empty it. When the pulp comes out, it's broken up into fluffy crumbs. And if we look inside, we can see the turning paddles that do the work. Now the crumbs go down a chute into a room where they age for a couple of days. Then from the aging room, the crumbs drop into another machine. This is something like a churn. In these, the crumbs are thoroughly churned together with another chemical called carbon disulfide. When it comes out of this churn, it's no longer wood pulp, but something different. We have some of it here. See here? Now the next step is to dissolve this in another chemical. It quickly becomes a thick liquid like this. Now we're ready to make it into a fiber. I'll show you again how it works. This is an acid bath. We use this tube as a spinneret. We draw in some of the liquid, force it out through the tiny hole on the end of the tube. The acid hardens it, and here's our rayon fiber. Now in the mill, they do the same thing on this spinning machine. This machine has many spinnerets. He's lifting up one of them now. This is the spinneret. And if we look closely at the end of it, we see it has many tiny holes with liquid oozing out of them. Now he's putting the spinneret down into the acid bath. And here's the fiber forming. The liquid is forced out through the holes in the spinneret to form these filaments. The filaments are drawn together into a single fiber. And this is twisted into a strand of rayon yarn. It goes down into this box. These men are taking cakes of yarn out of the machine. They call this doffing. Whenever enough yarn has been wound into a box, they open it up and take out the cake. A full cake of rayon yarn, ready to be washed and dried and woven into cloth.
Presto! Once again, the old gave way to the new, to nylon stockings.
The material was created by DuPont chemist Wallace Carruthers in February 1935. Made from chemicals found in petroleum, he called it Nylon 6.
By a miracle of modern science, such commonplace things as coal, water, and air have been transformed into threads more elastic than silk.
But Carruthers' creation wouldn't be seen by the public until October 27, 1938. That's when DuPont unveiled nylon hosiery to thousands of middle-class women in New York City.
Following nylon, polyester was patented in 1941 and gained popularity in the 1960s for its wrinkle resistance and durability.
Skin, it actually makes a very good base layer to remove that water. So to make polyester, it can be made out of recycled or virgin material. Either way, it's generally PET. You have PET pellets, which is plastic pellets, and they get run into a machine to turn into basically long strings. This is using extrusion molding. For this purposes, we're using extrusion molding and turning that plastic into long strings. These strings are then broken down and separated and fluffed to make little hairs almost, little threads. And these threads are then wound up to make longer threads, which is used for the clothing at the end.
When a girdle loses its shape, it can't help yours. But every Playtex Lycra girdle keeps its fit, keeps its shape, and yours. Playtex uses Lycra plus a light spin of nylon to control the stretch, keep the fit comfortably. Every Playtex Lycra girdle keeps its shape and yours comfortably. Playtex Lycra girdles, now in new shorty length too.
All right, now for the science here. We go back to the 1950s and the DuPont company. Joseph Shivers was not looking to find some new material for swimwear. He was looking to find an alternate material for women's girdles, which in those days were made of rubber, but rubber was in short supply. So they needed something that was stretchy and that would revert back to its original shape. Now, the DuPont company already had a history of working with giant molecules, so-called polymers. And these polymers, things like nylon and polyester, had already become mainstays of the industry. But now the question was building some kind of a molecule that could stretch and bounce back to its original shape. And Joseph Shivers, working under the directorship of William Charge at DuPont, came up with what we call a block copolymer. These are giant molecules made up of alternating blocks, some of which are very flexible and some are more rigid. Anyway, that's the secret behind spandex.
Modern yarn production is characterized by a strategic integration of advanced technologies and a growing focus on sustainability. The factory floor is no longer solely mechanical. It is a digitally connected, sensor-enabled, data-driven environment. Automation has replaced many repetitive tasks, allowing professionals to focus on quality and efficiency. Auto-doffing mechanisms, for example, remove full bobbins without halting production, reducing downtime and increasing productivity. In carding and drawing, automation ensures uniform fiber alignment, reducing variations in yarn strength and thickness. High-speed ring frames with servomotors and centralized monitoring systems enhance accuracy, while real-time sensors detect imperfections in winding, triggering corrective actions and minimizing waste. Robotic arms handle packaging and labeling, ensuring error-free transitions to logistics. Real-time data from smart sensors tracks critical parameters like spindle speed, yarn tension, and power usage, enabling early deviation detection and automatic machine adjustments. This digital transformation results in a faster, more efficient, and predictable end-to-end system. Sustainability has become a critical imperative in modern yarn manufacturing, driven by consumer consciousness and brand demands for responsibly produced yarns. Next-generation spinning machines are engineered for lower energy consumption and higher outputs, with compact and air-jet spinning systems reducing waste and noise. Advanced humidification systems dynamically adjust moisture levels, conserving water, and some plants are adopting waterless fiber processing and dyeing techniques, especially for synthetic and recycled yarns. Automation also supports circularity, with image recognition and spectral analysis machines precisely segregating waste fibers for high-quality recycled yarns, fostering closed-loop manufacturing. Digital twin technology and simulation tools allow manufacturers to model production environments virtually, optimizing setups before physical changes, reducing costs, and improving responsiveness to market demands. Despite the advancements in industrial production, a significant resurgence of interest in hand spinning has occurred in the 20th and 21st centuries. This revival, championed by figures like Mahatma Gandhi who promoted spinning as a spiritual activity and a means of independence, reflects a desire for artistic and personal expression. Crafters appreciate the control over yarn quality and color that hand spinning and hand dyeing provide, creating unique, warm, and beautiful yarns unmatched by mass production. This renewed interest highlights a deep human connection to the tactile and creative process of making something with your own two hands, a return to the roots of an ancient craft in a hypermodern world. The journey of yarn is not merely a linear progression of technology, but a dynamic interplay between efficiency and artistry, global trade and local craft, reflecting humanity's continuous evolution. From a simple twist of fiber between ancient fingers to the complex dance of machines in a modern factory, the history of yarn is truly a history of humanity. It's a story of survival, innovation, artistry, and connection. The journey of yarn, stretching back tens of thousands of years, reveals a remarkable continuity in human ingenuity and adaptation. It began with the most basic human actions, twisting fibers by hand, driven by the fundamental need for cordage and coverings. This primal act laid the foundation for an industry that would eventually clothe civilizations, build economies, and become deeply embedded in cultural identity and mythology. The evolution of tools, from the drop spindle to the spinning wheel, and then to the revolutionary machines of the industrial age, consistently aimed to enhance efficiency and output, transforming production from individual households to massive factories. This progress, while bringing unprecedented abundance, also brought significant social challenges, including harsh labor conditions and the displacement of traditional crafts. And yarn continues its dynamic evolution, with synthetic fibers offering new properties and applications, and modern manufacturing embracing automation and sustainability. Yet, amidst this technological advancement, there is a profound resurgence of appreciation for the slow, deliberate craft of hand spinning, a testament to the enduring human desire for connection to process and creation. The story of yarn is a powerful reminder that even the most commonplace objects carry a rich, complex history, reflecting humanity's relentless drive to create, adapt, and express. It is a narrative that continues to unfold, an unbroken thread weaving together our past, present, and future.
Today, we're diving into a breaking story that's shaking up the look and maybe even the function of government in America. Donald Trump has signed an executive order to launch something called the National Design Studio. It's a move that could overhaul everything from federal websites to the logos you see at your local government office. But is this about making things easier for everyone? Or is it just about stamping another Trump trademark on the country? President Trump has signed an executive order meant to improve the usability and aesthetics of federal government services. It's called America by Design. The idea is to upgrade everything Americans interact with, from .gov websites to government buildings, making them function better and look great too. To pull this off, the order creates a new agency within the White House called the National Design Studio. Trump is reportedly appointing Joe Gebbia, co-founder of Airbnb, to be the country's first ever chief design officer. Gebbia isn't new to government work either. He's already been involved in redesigning outdated federal processes, trying to bring fresh ideas to where they're needed most. Heads of agencies are now required to work with the new chief design officer, with initial results expected by July 4, 2026. President Trump describes the goal as creating first-class online and offline experiences for Americans. The administration also says it's time to fill the digital potholes across our nation. No more getting lost in paperwork or clunky websites just to renew a passport or file your taxes. You might be surprised to learn that the U.S. government runs over 26,000 different websites, and the vast majority, let's just say, are not exactly user-friendly. Less than 6% are considered good on smartphones, and nearly half aren't mobile-friendly at all. Plus, most don't even use the government's recommended design tools, leading to a patchwork of experiences for everyday Americans. But not everyone's buying the promise. Critics warn that Trump's history of beautification goes hand in hand with some rather ostentatious design choices. Some fear the initiative will put aesthetics over actual user needs, or that it could veer into promoting Trump's own tastes and symbolism.
Sheer opulence of the 114-room mansion is what stood out to people we spoke to who've been there and written about it.
Oh, it's not like Trump Plaza or Trump buildings in New York with his name splashed everywhere. It's just gold. It's gold, gold, gold.
Gold-plated and wooden crests abound. A room with marbled Middle East decor, busts bookending the fireplace. And the unforgettable billiard room with a portrait of a younger Donald Trump wearing a V-neck tennis sweater.
Mar-a-Lago is a monument to Donald Trump. Why does he have to be there? Why would he want to be there when he was president? Because he needs to constantly be celebrated.
This isn't Trump's first stab at reshaping government style. Back in 2021, he pushed an order to make classical and traditional design the norm for federal buildings. America by Design seems like the next step, so the big question on everyone's minds: is this about helping everyday people, or building a political legacy through aesthetics? Will this be a new dawn for how Americans experience government, or just a branding exercise for the history books? Only time will tell. One thing's for sure: Americans everywhere will be watching what comes next, be it bold design breakthroughs or more of the same.
The glitter conspiracy began with a simple question, one that should have had a straightforward answer. Glitter, that tiny, sparkling substance found at birthday parties, in cosmetics, and on craft tables, is everywhere. But beneath its twinkle lies an enigma. Who buys the most glitter in the world? For years, that question was met with silence. Then, in 2018, a journalist asked a top glitter manufacturer, Glitterex, to name their biggest customer. The answer came wrapped in secrecy.
Can you tell me what your biggest buyer is?
No, I absolutely know that I can't.
Okay, but you know what it is?
Oh, God, yeah, and you'd never guess it. Let's just leave it at that.
This is a reenactment of a conversation between a New York Times journalist and a manager at one of the largest glitter companies in the world.
Suddenly, glitter was no longer just decoration. It was a symbol of hidden power, an everyday object shrouded in mystery. Was it tied to secret military projects? Was there a government client so important that revealing their identity was forbidden? Or was it simply a commercial secret, a trade strategy to protect a massive, lucrative contract? These questions sparked intense curiosity and speculation. Internet sleuths, conspiracy theorists, and everyday people alike began chasing trails of glitter across the world. What made the glitter conspiracy uniquely captivating was the contradiction it presented. Glitter is both ubiquitous and invisible. It's in our homes, our food, our cosmetics, yet the largest consumers remain unknown. Theories about glitter quickly took a darker turn. Instead of just cat toys and art supplies, some suggested glitter had a hidden role in military technology, radar evasion, stealth materials, and sensitive explosives. Experts and insiders whispered about government contracts shrouded in non-disclosure agreements so binding, even factory workers were sworn to silence. Could that rainbow sparkle truly shimmer with national security secrets? Industrial glitter production itself is a massive global business, but much of it falls under classification or commercial protection, making it difficult to trace. Analysts explain how glitter's properties, its reflectiveness, molecular size, and adaptability, made it a potential instrument for stealth and detection technologies. Tracing glitter's path from factory to final user reveals another puzzle. Manufacturers vehemently protect their client lists, enforced through legal contracts layered with non-disclosure agreements and trade secrets. Attempts to pry into these shipments often hit roadblocks, documents heavily redacted, shipments coded and concealed. Government transparency applications face consistent denials or blackouts. The industry's silence fuels speculation about who buys vast amounts of glitter. Is it government stockpiling for unknown contingencies, or colossal commercial clients masking their operations? If glitter's biggest client remains hidden, its residues are not. Tiny sparkles appear in toothpaste, foods, cosmetics, even currency. Some see this as contamination. Others suspect intentional inclusion. Environmental scientists voice concerns about glitter's persistence and pollution. The collision of secrecy and everyday exposure raises questions about safety, ethics, and control. The glitter conspiracy flourished because of an unlikely force, the global internet community. Forums buzzed with theories, memes scoffed at sacred cows, and podcasts probed deeper than traditional media dared. A digital grassroots movement formed, combining humor, passion, and dedication. Some found community, others chased dead ends. Together, they kept the mystery alive. Behind every conspiracy theory are whispers from those who saw too much. Factory workers, engineers, and former employees brave the risks of speaking out, often under condition of anonymity. They tell of contracts that mandate silence under threat of career-ending lawsuits, of mysterious shipments unloaded in the dead of night. Their stories shed rare light on the shadowy glitter world, highlighting the tension between silence and revelation. Some glitter conspiracy theories stretch the imagination, from secret government stockpiles to glitter being a key in global surveillance. Others propose that glitter's opacity mirrors society's fears about transparency and power. Artists incorporate glitter's symbolism into their works, while sociologists analyze what this mystery reveals about contemporary culture. Looking ahead, the glitter conspiracy remains unresolved, but new technologies and environmental challenges may unmask parts of the mystery. Scientists develop biodegradable glitters. Governments face pressure for transparency. Will the secret glitter buyer ever be revealed? Or will the sparkle remain a shimmering symbol of the unknown? It makes one reflect on the enduring human fascination with mystery, the interplay between secrecy and trust, and how even the smallest particles can hold vast stories. Glitterex is one of the largest manufacturers of industrial and cosmetic glitter in the world. Their factories hum with production lines churning out billions of tiny, reflective particles destined for every imaginable use, from arts and crafts to high-tech applications. What sets Glitterex apart in the glitter universe is not just their scale, but the fierce secrecy that surrounds their operations. Employees bound by strict non-disclosure agreements speak of layers of security and opaque client negotiations. Time and again, Glitterex has been linked to the very contracts and shipments that fuel speculation about secret government projects and undisclosed major buyers. Though Glitterex, like the industry as a whole, remains tight-lipped about their biggest clients, their name has become emblematic of the puzzle itself, a symbol of how even the brightest sparkle can hide shadows. As we come to the end of this video, Glitterex reminds us that sometimes the most dazzling mysteries are found in the smallest particles, perpetually gleaming just out of sight. Thank you for joining us today.
Every beginning holds an ending. Ours is written, slowly, invisibly, across epochs of dust and radiation. The world will end. Not today, perhaps not for lifetimes, but inevitably. What remains uncertain is whether the hand that ends it will be ours or the universe's. Our undoing begins quietly. The seas rise. The air thickens. The warmth builds until the atmosphere itself becomes indifferent to breathing. Scientists warn we are nearing irreversible thresholds, melting poles, decaying reefs, and permafrost igniting from within. The same meteors that birthed oceans once erased entire eras. In archives and fossils, 5 mass extinctions speak in silence. Scientists track tens of thousands of asteroids now. They're only data points, until one stops being theoretical. Beyond them, the sun waits. Its fusion burns constant, its loyalty finite. In 1 billion years, it will scorch this planet's seas. In 5, it will expand and consume what's left. Our brightest light is our oldest warning.
Like all stars in the universe, the sun is not immortal. The sun was born 4.57 billion years ago. It survives by burning 600 million tons of hydrogen atoms into helium atoms in its core every second. However, there is only a finite amount of hydrogen in the core of the sun. For the next 4 billion years, the sun will continue to fuse hydrogen to make helium. As more helium builds up, the core will shrink. As a result, nuclear fusion reactions accelerate. Faster fusion means more energy output. In 3.5 billion years, the sun will shine 40% brighter than today. At this point, Earth's oceans will boil, and the ice caps will permanently melt. All the moisture in the atmosphere will be lost. Life will not likely survive, and Earth will become brutally hot and dry, like Venus. After that, the situation gets worse. 5.4 billion years from now, the sun will exhaust all hydrogen in its core. The core will heat up and get extremely dense, but the sun's outer layer will expand a lot. It could expand big enough to swallow Mercury, Venus, and maybe even Earth. Even if it doesn't grow as far as the Earth, high temperatures will completely burn our planet. Once the sun has emptied its fuel reserves, it will become unstable, and as a result, it will begin to pulse. Each pulse will remove more of the sun's mass until all that's left is a cool, dense core. This core is called a white dwarf. The sun will spend the rest of its days as a white dwarf, slowly cooling and dimming as time passes. By this point, Earth will be completely inhospitable.
Not all annihilation falls from the sky. Some is born in laboratories, some in boardrooms, some in the quiet arrogance of progress. Our species has learned to split the atom, to simulate thought, to drain the planet to feed its own reflection. Artificial intelligence grows in shadow, without conscience or compass. Nuclear arsenals sleep beneath continents, rusting like forgotten gods. The end may not arrive in an explosion. It may come softly, through scarcity, through silence, through the sudden realization that the stars are brighter than they used to be. Because there's no one left to look up. There will be no announcement, no act of God. Only the long unraveling of what was once called home.
Right now, there is a hunger crisis in nearly 90 countries. Food shortages and the skyrocketing price of fuel and fertilizer mean tens of millions of families are facing starvation and poor farmers cannot plant their crops. Women and girls who often eat last and least are simply not getting enough food. Pregnant women experience miscarriages, and mothers struggle to nurse, while babies and young girls don't get the nutrients they need for proper development. The causes of hunger are many and complicated.
Yet somehow, against reason, life persists. We keep building, burning, bearing children into the uncertainty. Maybe that's the final absurdity, that we know the ending and continue the story anyway. Every species believes it will survive. Every civilization thinks it's special. We are no different, just more articulate in our denial. A utopia born from vision, celebrity, and crypto ambition. Akon City was supposed to redefine Africa's future. It promised solar power, digital banking, and skyscrapers shimmering like the sunlit ocean they'd overlook. But by mid-2025, this dream was formally dead. This is the story of Akon City, how it began, what it symbolized, and why it ultimately crumbled. In 2018, Senegalese-American singer Akon, known worldwide for his chart-topping hits, announced an audacious plan to build a $6 billion futuristic city powered entirely by renewable energy and driven by cryptocurrency. Inspired by the fictional nation of Wakanda from Marvel's Black Panther, Akon promised a haven of innovation and Pan-African pride, dubbed simply Akon City. Backed by Senegal's government and situated near Mbodine, about 100 kilometers from Dakar, the plan envisioned 800 hectares of shining architecture, eco-housing, tech hubs, and creative spaces for African film production. The idea was intoxicating. Imagine a high-tech smart city, transacting entirely in Akon's own digital currency. It would be a cradle of blockchain education, economic inclusion, and cultural renaissance. By August 2020, the project broke ground. Cameras flashed as Akon and Senegal's officials laid the ceremonial stone, promising Phase 1 completion by 2023. American firm KE International took on the contract, while Dubai's Bakri and Associates led the futuristic design. But reality moved slower than the renderings. By late 2021, ground activity had nearly stopped. Then came COVID-19, supply chain inflation, investor hesitancy, and a declining crypto market. By 2023, only one building existed, the Akon City Welcome Center, and even it stood unfinished, surrounded by sand and silence. Local communities who had given up land waited for compensation that never came.
I always dreamed about it, but didn't know that it was possible, obviously. But as time went on, things got better. My energy company was super successful. So I was able to accumulate a group of friends that I was able to raise this money with and actually build the city. This would be one of many throughout all of Africa, starting in Senegal. So we plan to literally franchise the city. As of right now, the whole idea was, okay, what do we start first? What do we start to build first? So what I wanted to do, I wanted the city to be something that was in there that would actually be utilized by the whole country. So we're starting with the hospital first. The hospital is going to be the hospital alone is close to $1 billion, just the hospital, because it's going to be one of the biggest hospitals in all of West Africa. Because we noticed that a lot of times someone may get sick with a serious illness, but then someplace in Africa, you literally have to fly into Europe or in America to get treated. So now this will make a lot easier for people to just fly directly into Senegal, which may be an hour flight, 2-hour flight from anywhere in Africa. And everything else will build around it. Obviously, the police stations, the fire departments, the local private airstrip, things like that. All that will already be in place during Phase 1. We'll also have all the condominiums, the resorts, and everything like that built during Phase 1 as well too.
But now, okay, so talk to me.
So just to be very clear, Akon City is under attack. The concept of what this dream means to Africa is so big that it's shaking up a lot of agendas in Africa. So anyone that's in construction or anyone that just use basic common sense knows that it takes 12 months to maybe 15 months to build a normal house.
Right.
We're talking about building a city with high-end high-rises, major structures. I mean, it's just the studies alone took 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Before construction even began.
Those people who asked for their money back and were expecting it a year ago, when will they receive their money?
Well, that I'm just literally on everything finding out. So I'm gonna definitely get more involved and figure out what that's about. But we do have instruments in place to make sure those people are happy, even if I gotta go in my own pocket. I'm dead serious.
You'll pay out of your own pocket?
Hell yeah, I would, because they believed in me.
By mid-2024, the Senegalese government had grown impatient. SAPCO, the tourism agency that granted Akon the property, issued an ultimatum: begin construction or relinquish 90% of the land, and Akon missed the deadline. The failure of Akon City reveals intersections where idealism met infrastructure. At its core, it was undone by three forces. Over-reliance on Akon's crypto coin, which collapsed before construction even began. Lack of tangible investor commitment, as major U.S. and Middle Eastern backers never materialized. Regulatory and logistical barriers, with Senegal struggling to provide supportive infrastructure and oversight. Behind the glossy renderings was a lack of roads, water, and power. Foundations no futuristic vision could float above. Akon City's collapse isn't just a failed construction. It's a cautionary tale about ambition, technology, and celebrity-driven development. It symbolized the tension between image and implementation, between Africa's renewed confidence and the global structures that still shape its economy. Yet, many Senegalese remain hopeful that some part of Akon's vision survives. The idea of an African-led eco-city, a living Wakanda, still resonates across the continent, even if its first attempt fell short. Dreams don't fail, they evolve. In this case, it failed. Akon City may never rise from Senegal's sands, but it revealed a generation's hunger for progress and pride. For every disappointingly empty skyline, there's another African visionary preparing to build something real, something lasting, brick by brick. Thank you for joining us. Have you ever ordered takeout from a restaurant that doesn't seem to exist? Maybe you found it on your favorite delivery app, scrolled through the reviews, and you decide to give it a go, assuming it was just a new local spot. But what if that burger joint, that taco shack, or that sushi bar only existed in the cloud? No storefront, no waitstaff, not even a neon sign flickering in the night. Let's attempt to find out where your food is coming from, and who is behind it.
Next time you order your food on a delivery app, your meal might be coming from a ghost kitchen.
Yes, these nondescript buildings often house a dozen or more restaurants, but unless you have a phone, you can't eat the food. CBS 2's Jessica Moore reports.
At the restaurant chain Be Good, you'll find chicken, salads, and wraps, but you won't find seats or customers. All the dishes made here are for delivery only. It's what's known as a ghost kitchen.
As real estate prices go up in downtown Chicago, there's restaurants that are looking to have their footprint here in the city that just can't afford to do your traditional brick and mortar.
Ghost kitchens have become popular with the explosion of traffic on food delivery apps like Grubhub and Seamless. And that's why established restaurants are also getting in on the act.
You have to try to see what trends are coming and try to get ahead of the game on that as much as possible.
Ghost kitchens are popping up all across New York City, like Zool here in Soho. A recent Ohio State study shows that 80% of restaurants don't make it past year 5 in business. And some city council members say ghost kitchens will only make that problem worse.
I'm fearful of the future for the traditional mom and pop restaurant. These models could threaten their very existence.
Ghost kitchens allow food providers to experiment with different cuisines, often preparing multiple kinds of food in the same kitchen, under the same restaurant name. The model raises health and religious concerns, though, for people with allergies or someone ordering kosher.
People should be aware of what they're getting. Somebody might be allergic to peanut butter. They're not telling them. It might be in the same bowl, mix it.
They should be like somebody that will go in and inspect everything before they're allowed to go into the website.
And with at least 60% of U.S. consumers ordering delivery twice a week, this business model seems like an inevitable part of our future food. In Soho, Jessica Moore, CBS 2 News.
City Council says it wants more oversight of ghost kitchens, but it is yet to propose specific regulations or policy options.
Many of you have ordered food from online delivery services like Uber Eats or DoorDash, but how do you know you're getting the actual product from the restaurant that you ordered from? Some local restaurateurs told us today that they were being impersonated online, and now an assembly bill aims to stop that practice. It's called a ghost kitchen, a restaurant that impersonates an established eatery on a delivery app but doesn't serve the same food. Local restaurant owner Christina Martin, owner of Meniz's Pizza, tells me she discovered the fraud when she got calls asking for menu items that she didn't serve. She investigated and found a restaurant using her name, but not her food.
When we're competing with all the big guys in Las Vegas, it's tough. And so we pour our time and our energy and our savings and just everything into building these restaurants. To have someone be able to rip it off on behalf of an app is crazy.
Martin also says she was upset with the health rating of the restaurant that was stealing her business, something she says puts the public at risk. James Trees, the chef and owner of popular restaurants including Esther's Kitchen, said he works hard to build his brands.
But if they're going to be ripped off by someone who can just take a picture off of, website and then take a picture of our logo, and all of a sudden they can sell whatever they want at any price, that's not good for us as makers of food and developers of brands. It's not good for consumers in Las Vegas and Nevada.
In response to the complaints, Assemblywoman Serena Torres Fawcett introduced a bill to require food delivery apps to verify a restaurant's business license and county health certificate before delivering their food.
Food delivery platforms have a responsibility of vetting the businesses on their platforms.
A lobbyist for Uber said at a hearing Monday that the company shouldn't bear the burden of investigating the restaurant's credentials and shouldn't be liable for restaurants with expired or revoked health permits. Lobbyists for technology companies said they would work with the sponsor of the bill to try to get an amendment that's acceptable to them, but so far, a proposed amendment by Uber just isn't cutting it. Reporting from Las Vegas, I'm Steve Sebelius.
The idea sounds spooky, right? But it's not haunted, at least not in the usual way. Ghost kitchens, also called virtual restaurants or cloud kitchens, are a growing phenomenon in the post-pandemic world. They're designed for fast, hyper-efficient delivery. No need for signage or decor, just a slick online presence and a menu that looks legit. These kitchens might operate out of old warehouses, back rooms of existing restaurants, or even converted shipping containers stacked behind city blocks. One address can hold 10, 20, sometimes even 50 restaurants, all pushing out food under totally different names. The reason they exist makes perfect sense: convenience. In many cities, delivery apps became the new storefront. Why spend thousands on rent when you can survive entirely online? Big names like DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub saw the future coming, and quietly built empires around it. But there's something uncanny about it too. A world where our meals come from nowhere, made by no one we will ever meet. It represents a larger cultural ghost story, one about invisible systems feeding us without our even realizing who's behind them. There's deception in the mix too. Some celebrity-branded menus, like ghost taco chains or fried chicken concepts, turn out to be the same food from a totally different kitchen. Others exist for a few months, vanish, and reappear with new names and identical menus. In many ways, ghost kitchens are a perfect metaphor for our age. Highly efficient, strangely inauthentic, and eerily detached. They make us ask, what happens when everything we consume becomes both real and not real at the same time? Maybe that's why people are fascinated and freaked out by this stuff. Ghost kitchens mirror the hidden structure of our entire digital world. Invisible lines of code deciding what we see, what we eat, what we crave. And from that invisibility comes an existential question. If our daily life feels this automated and hollow, what happens when the system itself fails? Let's talk about that question, the end. Scientists, writers, and daydreamers have been predicting humanity's downfall forever. But in 2025, the most likely ways the world might actually end feel eerily similar to the way ghost kitchens operate: quiet, invisible, and algorithmic. A runaway algorithm managing food, transport, or power that fails catastrophically, like one massive ghost kitchen running the planet's logistics gone wrong. Rising heat and food scarcity, turning even the most efficient delivery system into dust. Nuclear or bioengineering accidents. Human-made, precise, and hosted in facilities as anonymous as the kitchens feeding your apps. Civilization brought down not by war, but by the simple breakdown of hidden networks, the same kind of invisible networks ghost kitchens depend on. We live in a strange moment, half haunted, half hungry. Ghost kitchens feed us convenience, but also remind us how easy it is to lose track of who's behind the curtain. Maybe the world won't end in fire or ice. Maybe it'll just fade into quiet automation, one digital order at a time. For centuries, evangelical Christianity has woven itself into the very fabric of American life, shaping beliefs, communities, and even national identity. Its influence extends from small-town church services to the halls of Congress, from family living rooms to viral social media movements. Yet behind the public debates and political campaigns lies a vast, varied, and deeply human story. A faith tradition that has both anchored millions and provoked heated discussion about the country's direction. The evangelical movement faces challenges and change, but its legacy is undeniable. The roots of evangelicalism in America reach back to the revivals of the 18th and 19th centuries, where charismatic preachers traveled town to town, calling people to born-again faith. Scenes of passionate sermons and emotional conversions swept the nation. These great awakenings brought spiritual intensity and unity, yet often set the stage for division among Protestants. While mainline denominations preach tradition, evangelicals spread messages of personal salvation and direct experience with God. This early era, marked by fiery tent meetings and circuit-riding preachers, gave birth to a movement rooted in accessible faith, open to ordinary people, emphasizing the Bible and committed to sharing the message with outsiders. Evangelicals sought to reshape America by calling out injustice, promoting abolition, and later championing temperance. Their grassroots energy built the foundation for a sprawling network of churches, schools, and ministries that would shape American society for generations. Martin Luther's story reads like a drama, full of storms, conviction, and unexpected courage. Born in 1483 to a miner's family in Eilben, Germany, he seemed destined for a quiet life. His early years as a monk and scholar were marked by deep unrest. Luther was a man searching for spiritual assurance, wrestling with an acute sense of his own shortcomings and the daunting power of God's judgment. Sent to Rome, he saw firsthand the corruption within the church, which only intensified his spiritual turmoil. Returning to Germany, he dove into the academic world, teaching theology at the University of Wittenberg. It was among his books and the scriptures that Luther had his breakthrough. Salvation wasn't earned by good works, but was a gift received through faith. This single insight would grow into the heartbeat of his life's work and ignite a movement. By the mid-20th century, evangelicals realized the need to organize nationally. In 1942, representatives from over 30 denominations convened to form the National Association of Evangelicals, aiming to unify the movement and distinguish themselves from both fundamentalists and modernists. The organization embraced scriptural authority and personal faith, while being open to dialogue and public engagement. This period saw radio preachers using the airwaves to reach millions, while new translations like the New International Version made the Bible more accessible than ever. Evangelical leaders increasingly weighed in on social issues, passing resolutions against racial discrimination, supporting public service, and responding to humanitarian crises around the globe. In these decades, evangelicals solidified their reputation as both passionate believers and community builders.
Amid seismic shifts in American society, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Our country is simultaneously becoming more diverse and divided, religiously pluralistic, and increasingly secularized. globally connected, and nationalistic. In this moment, we as evangelicals have an opportunity to bear witness to the good news of Jesus Christ in word and deed, to grow in deep biblical convictions and Christ-like compassion. Since 1942, the National Association of Evangelicals has been connecting and representing followers of Jesus. We believe that Jesus Christ has the power to transform individuals, communities, and every aspect of this world, and it takes all of us to do this together.
The Moral Majority emerged at a crossroads in American life, founded in 1979 by the outspoken Baptist pastor Jerry Falwell. For many, this group captured a feeling that the country was slipping away from what they considered traditional values in the wake of dramatic social changes. Civil rights advances, feminism, the sexual revolution, and new court decisions touching on prayer and abortion. For Falwell and his allies, these shifts were more than just politics. They were deeply personal and spiritual, stirring a mission to take back America. Suddenly, millions of religious conservatives who had stayed out of public life felt called to participate.
More than 40 years ago, in my college training for the ministry, I was instructed repeatedly, religion and politics do not mix. The premise, I suppose, theologically was that ideally, if we meet the spiritual needs of society, we automatically, as a side benefit, cure the political and social ills. Idealistically, that's a correct premise. But in reality, it doesn't work out that way.
What set the Moral Majority apart was its energy and organization. Falwell used television, radio, and mailing lists to rally supporters across denominations, including evangelicals, fundamentalists, Catholics, and even Jews, uniting them under a broad banner of pro-family and pro-American causes.
We've taken God out of our schools and put all of this in. The Bible says, whatsoever we sow, we're going to reap. And so we are reaping what we've been sowing. And I think America is in for the judgment of God unless we turn around and change our way of living.
So we pray, O God, as we enter a new era, that we as a nation may experience a moral and spiritual restoration. O God, we consecrate Richard Milhouse Nixon.
The group became famous for its vocal opposition to abortion, pornography, the Equal Rights Amendment, and gay rights. But it also lobbied for issues like a strong national defense and prayer in schools. Their reach was amplified by direct mail campaigns, rallies, and influential broadcasts, which helped turn formerly private religious concerns into potent political messages. At its height, the Moral Majority became the largest conservative lobby group in the U.S., regularly meeting with politicians, backing candidates, and shaping debates on national and local levels. But the Moral Majority was not without critics. Detractors accused the group of intolerance and argued that it sought to blur the separation between church and state. The group's assertive tactics and uncompromising stances stirred controversy in the media and sparked heated debates about the role of religion in politics. By 1989, changing winds and financial challenges led to its decline and eventual disbanding. But its legacy lived on in the rise of new organizations and an energized religious right that continues to influence American society and politics, even decades since its heyday. Politically, evangelicals have not always been a monolith. Most African American evangelicals, for example, have supported the Democratic Party, while white evangelicals have gravitated toward conservatism. Over time, the movement's political activism extended beyond domestic issues. Evangelicals lobbied for global religious liberty and human rights, shaping foreign policy during presidential administrations like Reagan's. Their influence helped pass major legislation and elect national leaders, but it also sparked debate about religion's role in American democracy.
Now, you can't change your past, but you can determine your destiny by deciding for Christ. But Christ can change your past. He died on the cross so that all the sins you've ever committed, all the things you've ever done wrong are forgiven. What do you have to do? You have to repent of your sins. That means to be willing to change your way of living. You may have no power to do it. You may not have power to give up some of those habits you know are wrong. You may not have power to fall in love with your wife again. You may not have power to change your whole life that you know needs to be changed. But if you surrender to Christ, He'll give you the power. You say, well, Billy, I don't know what else to do. I've been baptized, I joined the church and so forth, but I don't really have peace and joy and power in my life, all that you're talking about. How do I get it? Jesus Christ said, I am the way. Come to Christ.
Born on a dairy farm in North Carolina in 1918, Graham emerged from humble beginnings to become the most prominent evangelist of the 20th century. His signature crusades filled stadiums from Los Angeles to London and beyond, and he's often credited with preaching, face-to-face, to more people than anyone else in history. What set Graham apart was not just the size of his audiences, but his warm approach and clear, direct message about hope, forgiveness, and a relationship with God. At the heart of Billy Graham's ministry was a spirit of inclusion and a longing to break down barriers. At a time when the nation was deeply divided, Graham broke with segregationist norms and personally removed the ropes separating black and white attendees at his 1953 Chattanooga crusade. Billy Graham was also a trailblazer in media, pioneering televised sermons, newspaper columns, radio broadcasts, and faith-based films, spreading his message to living rooms, dorm rooms, and hospital beds in every corner of the globe.
Just getting into a prophetic vein. Someone with a digestive tract problems, quickly call. We've seen midgets grow. We've seen arms and legs that stop growing because of growth cells that stop. I don't make this stuff up.
Pastor Creflo Dollar of the World Changers Church International facing harsh criticism after starting a fundraising campaign to buy this $65 million luxury private jet.
If I want to believe God for a $65 million plane, you cannot stop me. You cannot stop me from dreaming.
I had enough money to buy a beautiful Cessna Citation jet, cash. And since there's so much jealousy in this room tonight that I can feel over this, a few weeks later, I bought another one worth 3 times what that one was, cash. Act happy over my blessing, folks.
It was a News 8 investigation last February which first raised questions about Copeland's apparently personal use of his new church jet.
This is a preaching machine.
Most notably for a ski trip to Colorado and visits to an exotic game ranch in South Texas. Here's Copeland and his son John proudly posing with a pair of Axis deer, indigenous to India and Sri Lanka.
The size of your seed will determine the size of your harvest. I don't understand why, but there's something happens at a level where people step into faith and give $1,000 that don't happen at other levels.
You're going to have a breakthrough through this $273 seed.
All you've got is $1,000. Listen, that's not enough money anyway to buy the house. You're trying to get in the apartment. You're trying to buy the house. That's not enough money anyway. You get to that phone and you put that seed in the ground and watch God work it.
I have a feeling that somebody that wants a credit card debt wiped out, that if you'll use your faith as you sow the 1,000 on a credit card, as you use your faith, God's going to wipe out your credit card and debt.
We know what's wrong with you. You've got cancer. The bad news is we don't know what to do about it, except give you some poison that'll make you sicker. Now, which do you want to do? Do you want to do that, or you want to sit here on Saturday morning, hear the Word of God, and let...
The evangelical movement's story is also one of personalities, charismatic leaders who have inspired millions. Billy Graham remains its best-known ambassador, his global crusades and TV broadcasts introducing countless viewers to evangelical faith. Franklin Graham, his son, continues that legacy, shaping evangelicals' response to cultural change and disaster. Figures like Rick Warren, Joel Osteen, and Joyce Meyer have built megachurches with audiences rivaling major sports arenas. Organizations like Focus on the Family, the Christian Coalition, and the Family Research Council have mobilized believers on issues ranging from family values to religious liberty. The evangelical subculture encompasses music, publishing, social media, and global missions, each a channel for faith-driven activism. Across urban, suburban, and rural America, evangelical leaders have navigated controversy, criticism, and cultural change, often sparking media attention and public debate. Focus on the Family began in 1977, founded by psychologist Dr. James Dobson in Southern California, emerging from a heartfelt desire to offer practical support and encouragement for families navigating the pressures of modern life. Dr. Dobson's background in psychology, rather than formal ministry, gave his insights on marriage, parenting, and family dynamics a relatable, everyday perspective that set Focus on the Family apart from other religious organizations. His engaging, common-sense advice found a ready audience, and soon the organization's flagship radio program was reaching homes across America. Guided by a mission to nurture and defend the God-ordained institution of the family and promote biblical truths worldwide, Focus on the Family quickly expanded beyond radio to include books, magazines, family counseling resources, conferences, and a huge portfolio of media, eventually launching beloved children's series like Adventures in Odyssey. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, the ministry often fielded thousands of calls and letters daily from people seeking wise, compassionate answers to parenting, marriage, or faith questions. What made the organization resonate so deeply with families was the sense that real struggles, discipline troubles, broken marriages, faith crises, were being addressed with both conviction and empathy. But Focus on the Family has also been a major voice in the public square, especially around issues related to marriage, education, and the sanctity of life. Taking strong stances on topics like abortion, LGBT rights, and school prayer, the organization has been both praised and criticized for blurring the line between spiritual guidance and political advocacy. This tension challenged the ministry to balance a pastoral, supportive tone with a commitment to its deeply held values, sparking lively debate in churches, the media, and Congress alike.
You know, I have Christian people, conservative people who come up to me and say, well, what's he like? The truth of the matter is that he's much more of a gentleman than anybody knows he is, and he has kept every promise he made to the faith community. I really do love and appreciate that man. If that makes some people unhappy, I'm speaking for myself, not for my organization. But I'm extremely pleased, and I wish people would get off his back.
Has that surprised you at all with President Trump? A lot of folks didn't think he would fulfill many of these promises, but he seems to have gone above and beyond here.
He's exceeded all expectations and continues to do so. At the Rose Garden yesterday, he gave a wonderful talk about the religious beliefs and what the Constitution says about our freedom, the religious freedoms, and how he wants to protect them, and he has really done what he could. Yesterday, he announced legislation that he's supporting that would allow people in the medical community to live by their consciences and not violate them. And of course that relates to abortion and other things. So he's constantly looking for ways to promote the agenda, the things we believe in. He's the most pro-life president we have ever had. And continues to do so. And he's appointed more than 100 judges now. I couldn't be more pleased with him. Now, he's not a perfect man, but I'm not either. You know, and so we're just grateful for him being there, and I wish they would let him do his job.
After Dobson stepped down from day-to-day leadership in 2003, Jim Daly took the helm, bringing a somewhat softer and broader approach while holding fast to the group's biblical roots. Today, Focus on the Family continues to offer marriage and parenting resources, counseling, and community outreach, while remaining a powerful force in the culture wars. For countless families, it has been a steadying presence, sometimes a lifeline, reminding listeners and readers alike that, no matter what life brings, support and grace are always at the heart of a healthy home. America at a Crossroads was a Christian Coalition training and recruitment video that was distributed by the organization in 1990. It shows Pat Robertson and Ralph Reed laying the groundwork for the takeover of the Republican Party by the religious right.
Is America facing its best years ever or a period of national decline? That's the focus of this video presentation entitled America at a Crossroads. Hello, I'm Pat Robertson. You probably know me as the host of television's 700 Club program and as a former candidate for the Republican nomination for the presidency of the United States. But today I would like to speak to you as a private citizen about something that troubles me deeply. That's the moral decline of America, and of course what you and I can do about it. America, a nation founded by Christians and built upon biblical values, is in danger of losing its proud heritage of national greatness through moral strength. The warning signs are all around us. The United States has the highest illiteracy rate in the industrialized world. 1 out of every 2 marriages in this country ends in divorce. 1 out of every 3 pregnancies ends in abortion, and 15 million children are living in one-parent households. There's an epidemic of sexually transmitted diseases, one of which is incurable and fatal. Pornography is an $8 billion a year industry. Our government is spending itself into debt at a rate of $500,000 a minute. That leaves future generations with a total debt that already exceeds $3 trillion. No society, however strong militarily or economically, has ever endured, whose families disintegrate, marriages splinter, whose people give themselves over to unrestrained promiscuity and sensuality, and whose youth waste themselves in crime and narcotics.
The Christian Coalition emerged in 1989. Founded by televangelist Pat Robertson in the wake of his bid for the Republican presidential nomination. Sensing a vacuum left by the fading moral majority, Robertson wanted to rally conservatives, especially Christians, who felt increasingly sidelined by the rapid cultural changes of the time. What set the Christian Coalition apart was its grassroots energy. It wasn't just top-down preaching, but thousands of local volunteers, organizing at church basements and community halls, determined to make faith more than a private affair by stepping boldly into the public square. Led early on by the young and media-savvy Ralph Reed, the organization quickly became famous, and sometimes infamous, for its robust political strategies. The coalition's voter guides were distributed in churches nationwide, highlighting the positions of candidates on issues like abortion, school prayer, and same-sex marriage. These guides stopped short of directly endorsing candidates, but made clear where the group believed Christian convictions lined up with public policy. The influence of the Christian Coalition was undeniable. By the mid-1990s, it claimed millions of supporters and played a major role in helping conservatives gain ground in the Republican Party. The organization's impact was especially pronounced in the 1994 congressional elections, often called the Republican Revolution. Analysts credited the coalition's outreach and organizing for mobilizing conservative voters, helping Republicans win control of Congress for the first time in decades. The group trained its members to participate in local politics, lobby leaders, and even run for office themselves, encouraging everyday believers to move from the pew to the precinct. Yet critics, including civil liberties advocates, worried that its mix of religion and politics threatened the separation of church and state, leading to major legal and tax battles in the late 1990s and 2000s. Despite its decline in national visibility since the turn of the century, the Christian Coalition's model of grassroots activism reshaped the American religious and political landscape. Its legacy can be seen in the continued involvement of Christian conservative groups in political campaigns, local government, and national debates. For supporters, it showed how faith could be a guiding light in politics. For critics, it raised tough questions about pluralism and public life in a diverse society. But no matter where you stand, there's no denying that the Christian Coalition left a mark on American history that still echoes in today's culture wars.
The first is a grassroots strategy. We're going to have the nation divided up into seven state regions. And in each of those regions, we're going to have a full-time, paid, trained, professional regional director. They will be responsible for training activists in their region, interfacing with candidates at the local, state, and federal level, and mobilizing people at the grassroots. Each of those regional directors in each of those 7 states will have 10 top counties, targets, where they have to organize down into the precincts by the next election. Organized into precincts with precinct captains and then block captains. Second aspect of the grassroots strategy is one that I've already touched on, and that's the leadership schools. We're going to put literally millions of dollars into the field to teach people. Second leg of this strategy is a lobby strategy. Once you've built that grassroots organization, then what do you do with it? The answer is you mobilize it to influence public policy. And so what we're going to do is have a full-time lobbying presence in Washington by the middle of 1991 with a fully staffed lobbyist who will track legislation and keep our people updated. And then we will have either a part-time or full-time pro-family lobbyist in as many state capitals as we can organize. Third aspect of this, I think, is very important, and that's a media strategy. The mistake that we made in the 80s was in allowing the media to filter our message through television and newspapers, so that the only thing the American people found out about who we were and what we stood for was what the media said we were. So through the media, we have a sophisticated program of radio and television. We're going to be running 60 and 120-second spots on the Christian Coalition on 309 radio stations around the nation. And in addition to that, we'll be doing issue spots on national cable television. We'll also be doing billboards, and we will be doing full-page ads in national newspapers. We're going to be spending about $250,000 a year on media, so that the message that people get about the Christian Coalition and who we are is what we want them to get instead of what the media wants us to get. Fourthly, we have a legal strategy. This battle, in addition to being fought in the airwaves and in the halls of Congress, will be fought in the courtrooms. In fact, in many cases, it's a natural flow. You get a bill passed, ACLU goes in and sues over it, and then you end up in court. And then finally, and really most importantly, it's a strategy of prayer. You know, as good as it sounds, if it's our plan and not God's plan, it's not going to work. And you've got to always, as David saw it, when he went into battle against the Philistines, you've got to always get down on your face before God and say, Lord, do you want me to go up into battle or not? And if you do, how do you want me to? And I believe that if we carry this fivefold strategy out with diligence and with effectiveness, I think that we will be the most powerful political force in the nation by the end of this decade.
Evangelical faith is deeply woven into American culture. In every state, one can find evangelical churches, from traditional Southern Baptist congregations to storefront Pentecostal fellowships, from hip non-denominational worship to vibrant gospel choirs. Music, education, and family life in evangelical circles have shaped generations, offering both community and identity. Cultural influence is not one-dimensional. Evangelicals have propelled charity work, influenced pop music, launched adoption and youth mentoring programs, and engaged in debates about schools and public prayer. They have also faced intense criticism, challenged for outspoken positions on LGBTQ rights, abortion, and science. The movement has produced best-selling authors and controversial pundits, each contributing threads to America's social tapestry. The 21st century has brought sweeping changes. The rise of Americans who claim no religious affiliation has led to declining numbers in traditional churches, even as evangelicalism remains one of the nation's largest denominations. With fewer young adherents, megachurches and new movements have sought to modernize worship styles and leadership. Some evangelicals embrace social justice and environmental causes. Others double down on conservative activism.
Students upset after two conservative activists made an unannounced visit to Tennessee State University. The pair was eventually escorted off of campus by police as angry students gathered around. News 2's Kenley Hargett reports on the aftermath of that event.
If you want to talk to people who disagree with you, you go to the place where people are likely to disagree with you.
Students visibly upset at a conservative group showing up to their university unannounced. The group is on a nationwide college tour to honor Charlie Kirk and to open dialogue on various political topics. Tuesday, they chose Tennessee State University, where they set up two controversial signs in front of their table. One saying, DEI should be illegal, and the other, deport all illegals now. Let's talk. I sat down with two members of the group on why they chose to come to an HBCU.
We kind of just drive places and then we end up in a city. We pick a city and then we just go to that city and then we kind of figure out what universities are there. We didn't know that TSU was an HBCU until the night before. He didn't know until they told him on campus.
The university has released a statement about the event saying university policy requires any demonstration or protest activity requires advance approval and permitting. The group told me they reached out to TSU for approval, but could not reach them. They believe even if they had approval, they still would have been met with anger.
I don't know what would have been different about the situation. We probably would have been posted up in the exact same spot. The exact same people would have been on campus, and they would have had the exact same mindset.
The group plans to continue their tour of speaking at colleges and universities, but they still don't plan to announce where they will speak next due to safety concerns. TSU says they will continue to uphold university policies and ensure campus remains a safe, welcoming, and orderly environment for all members of their community. Reporting in Nashville, Kenley Hargett, News 2.
After the COVID-19 pandemic, church attendance declined, with many turning to virtual services and small group gatherings. Churches led by younger, more diverse pastors are gaining momentum, facing internal debates about tradition, social engagement, and the future of the movement. Despite the challenges, evangelicals remain determined to engage culture, though research shows aspirations often outpace reality. In every American story, echoes of evangelical faith ring out, sometimes in harmony, sometimes discordant, always passionate. The movement remains a living tapestry, evolving, striving, questioning, and believing. The conversation continues, and its outcome, like the faith itself, is never fully settled. Christmas is a time of joy and warmth, but beneath the twinkling lights and festive songs lies a shadowy past filled with chilling legends, dark rituals, and surprising dangers. Today we welcome you on a journey to uncover 20 unusual truths about Christmas that will change the way you see the holiday forever. Number 1. Christmas Carol Crackdown. In the heart of the Middle Ages, music and celebration couldn't always find a home in the church. Carol singing, today an innocent holiday tradition, was once considered downright dangerous to spiritual order. The reason? Medieval carolers danced as they sang, sometimes joyfully, sometimes riotously, and sometimes crossing lines the clergy couldn't tolerate. Church leaders saw their exuberance as dissolute, or even the work of the devil, fearing that such wild energy might corrupt or distract their congregations. Banished from sacred halls, carol singers didn't surrender their joy. Instead, they transformed what began as a public exclusion into a roaming celebration. Door to door, bundled tight against the cold, they brought music to homes and taverns instead. Their lively performances made winter's long nights more bearable, and in a way, this tradition of caroling, as we know it, was born, outdoors and on the move. For the medieval townsfolk, the visit from carolers brought liveliness and a bit of mischief, a stark contrast to the more rigid church gatherings. The echo of those old superstitions still lingers in the custom of singing carols outside, as a self-made community event. What began as an act of rebellion and exclusion grew into one of the holiday's most welcoming, joyous traditions. Their story is a reminder. Some of the world's best-loved customs are born from adversity. This winter, when carolers come calling, remember the centuries-old defiance and delight behind every song at your doorstep. Number 2. Check your chimney for witches. It's Christmas Eve, and millions of children everywhere have the same magical thought. How will Santa slip into their homes? The answer seems obvious to many. A big, jolly man ascending and then sliding down the chimney, soot and all, to leave gifts. But this festive ritual hides an ancient history that's a bit more mysterious and a little spooky. Long ago, when midnight fell on solstice nights, legends warned of spirits and witches encroaching on the warmth of families. Instead of knocking on doors, these supernatural visitors slipped in through the chimney, bypassing locks and boundaries to haunt the unwary. These beliefs were passed from Norse mythology, where Odin, the winter god, delivered gifts via smoky hearths. Over centuries, such stories mixed with local fears. Then, poets and storytellers gave the motif a heartwarming twist. Clement Clarke Moore's iconic 1823 poem, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," brought Santa's dramatic entrance down the chimney into the popular imagination, transforming a passage once feared as a witch's gateway into the joyous avenue for a magical visitor with toys and laughter. Now, each year, children delight in the thought of Santa braving the soot and squeezing through impossibly small flues. What was once a story meant to ward off evil became the source of so much excitement and comfort. A reminder that every holiday tradition has a story, and sometimes it's stranger than fiction. Number 3. Go to Hell with Krampus. In the chilly alpine forests of Europe, where winter nights are long and ancient traditions run deep, lives a fearsome figure that stands as the dark shadow to Santa Claus's cheerful light. His name is Krampus, a horned, demonic creature whose job is to punish the misbehaving children who don't earn the jolly man's gifts. Unlike Santa's sack full of toys, Krampus carries switch rods for beating or a sack to drag naughty kids away. Sometimes, the legends say, all the way to hell. Krampus's roots stretch back further than most holiday figures, likely to pre-Christian alpine pagan rituals where fearsome spirits guarded people by scaring off both evil forces and bad behavior. Over time, Krampus became entwined with Christian traditions, accompanying Saint Nicholas on December 5th. While Saint Nick rewarded good children, Krampus was the enforcer, a medieval bad cop with long horns and a frightening beard. In our modern times, the legend endures in the thrilling, chaotic Krampus runs, where costumed revelers channel the creature's wild energy down village streets, rousing local townspeople and reminding everyone that the holiday season includes both reward and reckoning. This living tradition blends fright and festivity, making Krampus not just a terrifying myth, but a powerful cultural icon that has survived bans and centuries of change.
Ja, für uns, Krampus ist eigentlich Brauchtum. Wir wollen den Brauchtum hochleben lassen und das auch einfach an die Jugend weitergeben. Denn ja, so viele Bräuche in der heutigen Zeit, die verkommen und werden vergessen. Und wir wollen das einfach hochleben lassen.
Number 4. You'll go crazy for this one. In Sweden, one of the most iconic symbols of Christmas is not a jolly man in red, but a giant goat made of straw. Known as the Julbok, this creature has ancient roots that stretch back to pre-Christian times. It was originally tied to Norse mythology and fertility rites, symbolizing protection over the harvest and the promise of good fortune for the coming year. In these modern times, the Julbok is lovingly crafted from straw, becoming a cherished Christmas ornament and a symbol of goodwill. Families display small versions around their homes, while the enormous gavel goat, an epic structure over 40 feet tall, takes center stage every December in the town of Gavel. It attracts visitors worldwide eager to see this towering symbol of Swedish tradition. But this festive tradition has a dangerous flip side. The Julbok straw construction makes it vulnerable to fire, and every year, some thrill seekers attempt to burn it down. In Gavel alone, the goat has been torched more than 30 times since 1966. What started as a ritual to drive away evil spirits has become, at times, a real and perilous tradition, turning a symbol of cheer into a blaze that threatens the heart of the holiday season. Despite the flames and risks, the Julbok remains a beloved emblem of Swedish Christmas, a reminder that even the oldest traditions carry stories of resilience and renewal. So next time you see a humble straw goat or hear about the giant one in Gavel, remember the deep history woven into its straw and the fiery spirit that keeps the holiday alive. Number 5. Seasonal safety. Every year, the approach of Christmas fills homes with the buzz of excitement and a dash of risk. For nearly 15,000 people in the United States, that risk becomes reality with a trip to the emergency room during the holiday season. What starts as harmless fun, stretching for the tallest branch, climbing ladders to hang twinkling lights, or perfecting those rooftop decorations, often ends in more drama than anyone wished for. From ladders slipping on icy sidewalks to children tripping over new toys or swallowing shiny ornaments, holiday hazards come in unexpected forms. Falls account for most decoration-related injuries, while fires, often fueled by dry trees or faulty lights, bring not just fear, but real danger. Safety may not rival the sparkle of holiday lights, but small precautions can prevent big accidents. Experts urge families to keep trees freshly watered, never leave candles unattended, and use caution on ladders, turning a checklist into peace of mind. The stories behind those emergency visits aren't just statistics. They're reminders of just how fragile the season can be. So next time you go for the perfect spot on the tree or haul decorations up to the rooftop, remember, the real magic of Christmas is making sure everyone stays safe to enjoy the festivities together. Because even the brightest lights aren't worth a trip to the ER. Number 6. The mummers are coming. In the frosty weeks after Christmas, a strange tradition weaves through the snowy streets of Newfoundland, mummering. It isn't just caroling, it's a playful, chaotic invasion. Disguised from head to toe, neighbors become near unrecognizable as they crash parties, singing rowdy songs, telling silly jokes, and dancing. All the while, their hosts try to guess who's under that mophead mask. Letting the mummers in means laughter, drinks, and a wild guessing game that can last deep into the night. But there's another side. Those disguises, meant for fun, have given mummers legendary freedom, and sometimes a reputation for mischief. In the past, their anonymity wasn't just an excuse for pranks. Occasionally, playful antics tipped into rowdy mayhem, and in the 1800s, a mummering party even ended in tragedy, leading to a 100-year ban. While today's mummering focuses on fun, music, and community spirit, a shadowy thrill lingers under those oversized bras and tea towel turbans. Still, the tradition endures and even thrives. Each winter, the Mummers Parade brings people together, old and young, reminding everyone of a unique Newfoundland blend. A dash of the spooky, a heap of hospitality, and as much laughter as possible. So, if soulful voices or the rattle of an ugly stick ring out in the snowy dusk, open your door wide. With any luck, the mummers will bring their wild, wonderful chaos to your home.
Oh boy, good.
Don't seem like Christmas if the mummers are not here. Granny would say as she'd knit in her chair. Things have gone modern, I suppose that's the cause. Christmas is not like it was. Mark, what's the noise out by the porch door? Granny, 'tis mummers, there's 20 or more. Her old withered face brightens up with a grin. Any mummers, nice mummers, loud in. Come in, lovely mummers, don't bother the snow. We can wipe up the water, sure, after you go. Sit if you can, or on some mummer's knee. Let's see if we know who you be. There's big ones and small ones and tall ones and thin. Boys dressed as women and girls dressed as men. Humps on their backs and mitts on their feet. My blizzard, we'll die with the heat. There's only one there that I think that I know. That tall feller standing o'er alongside the stove. He's shaking his fist for to make me not tell. Must be Willie from out on the hill. Now that one's a stranger, if there ever was one, with his underwear stuffed and his trapdoor undone. Is he wearing his mother's big 42 bra? I knows, but I'm not going to say. Don't suppose you find mummers would turn down a drop. No homebrew or elky, whatever you got. Not the one with his rubber boots on the wrong feet. He's enough for to do him all week. Suppose you can dance, yes, they all nod their heads. They've been tapping their feet ever since they came in. Now that the drinks have been all passed around, the mummers are planking her down. Be careful the lamp and hold on to the stove. Don't swing Granny hard, cause you know that she's old. No need for to care how you buckles the floor, cause the mummers have danced here before. God, how hot is it? We'd better go. I allow we'll all get the devil's own cold. Good night and good Christmas, mummers, me dears. Please God, we will see you next year. Good night and good Christmas, mummers, me dears. Please God, we will see you next year.
Number 7. Day of the Holy Innocents. Not all holidays began in celebration. December 28th, once called the Day of the Holy Innocents, has roots in one of the darkest stories from Christian legend. It marks the day when King Herod, threatened by the prophecy of a newborn king of the Jews, ordered a massacre. Every male child under 2 in Bethlehem swept away to protect his throne. History remembers these children as the first martyrs, innocents lost to fear and power. But time has a way of softening even the harshest traditions. In Spain and across Latin America, what began as a day of grief slowly shifted. Solemn rites gave way to mischief and laughter. Inspired by medieval feasts of fools and winter festivals, people started playing jokes on one another, pinning paper cutouts on backs, telling tall tales, all washed down with music and merriment. This blend of remembrance and revelry, solemnity and silliness, reflects humanity's power to heal. The horrors remembered on the Day of the Holy Innocents may never be forgotten, but the celebration that grew around them is a testimony to hope, reminding us that even the darkest shadows may someday be brightened by laughter. Number 8. The Gingerbread House of Horror. Every December, people all over the world build candy homes out of gingerbread, frosting, and sugar. It's one of the sweetest holiday traditions there is. But the idea of a little house made of treats doesn't actually begin with cozy kitchens and family fun. It comes from a much darker place. The grim fairy tale of Hansel and Gretel, where 2 abandoned children stumble across an edible cottage in the forest, owned by a cannibal witch. In the story, that candy-covered house is a cruel trap. Desperate and starving, Hansel and Gretel think they've found a miracle. Walls of cake, windows of sugar, a roof dripping with sweets. Instead, they're lured inside by a witch who fattens them up with the intention of eating them. The gingerbread house isn't a symbol of comfort, it's bait. A nightmare disguised as a wish come true, designed to prey on hungry, vulnerable kids. Over time, bakers and storytellers soften that darkness. The haunted candy cottage slowly turned into something families could enjoy together. A little house you decorate, admire, and eventually eat. Today, gingerbread houses are about creativity and togetherness, not witches and ovens. Still, it's wild to think that one of our most wholesome holiday activities began as a tale of fear, hunger, and a monster in the woods. So the next time you're piping icing along the roof of a gingerbread house, remember, you're not just making dessert. You're rewriting the ending of a very old, very dark story, turning a cannibal witch's trap into a symbol of sweetness, survival, and a holiday that tastes a lot safer than it used to. Number 9. Seeing red. Picture this. It's Christmas Eve, and a kid is staring at a mall Santa, red coat, white fur trim, black boots, and thinking, he's always looked like this. But that famous red suit is actually the end result of a long style evolution. For centuries, gift-giving figures like St. Nicholas, Father Christmas, and Santa Claus were shown in all kinds of colors, including green, brown, and even gold. The red and white look only slowly rose to the top as different traditions and artists blended into one familiar image. In the 1800s, illustrators and writers in Europe and the United States started reshaping Santa into a more unified character. Poets like Clement Clarke Moore described a plump, fur-clad visitor, and artists such as Thomas Nast drew him with a big belly, flowing beard, and increasingly, a red coat. At the same time, these new images were layered over much older winter figures, like the Norse god Odin, who rode through the sky during Yule, and other stern, supernatural visitors who rewarded some people and punished others. Santa kept the cozy parts of those legends and quietly dropped the terrifying bits. Then came the advertising era. In the early 20th century, companies realized Santa was marketing gold. Artists put him on magazine covers, candy tins, and store windows, often in red because it popped off the page and echoed church depictions of St. Nicholas's red bishop robes. When Coca-Cola launched its famous Christmas campaigns in the 1930s, their warm, friendly, red-suited Santa didn't invent the look. But it did beam that version of him into living rooms, shop displays, and billboards everywhere, until the red coat felt official.
When did Santa start wearing his, now considered classic, red suit? Well, although many of us may think it's cemented in tradition, it's actually part tradition and part advertising. As I mentioned before, depictions of Santa and his attire have varied, and there are images showing him wearing red robes, but Coke featured their first ads with a jolly Santa in a big red coat and white fur trim as early as the 1920s. In 1931, they commissioned illustrator Haydon Sundblom to make December ads that featured a jolly red-suited Santa Claus drinking Coke, to remind people that they could drink Coke all year round, not just on summery afternoons. He drew his inspiration from the Jolly Toy Giver in Clement Clarke Moore's An Account of a Visit from St. Nicholas. But even though the rumor is that Coke chose the red color specifically to match its logo, the company still states that they simply stuck with a color that Santa was already seen in before. So even though they didn't invent the image of Santa at Christmas or originate the idea of his red suit, Coke's clever ad campaigns to make people drink soda during the winter did help cement the image of one Santa, the fat, white-bearded, jolly variety, virtually eliminating all the alternative versions that came before him in American pop culture. It seems like the power of advertising packs a serious wallop.
What often gets forgotten is how much older and darker some of Santa's DNA is. Before the jolly laugh and cookie crumbs, winter visitors were sometimes eerie or intimidating. Mysterious riders in the sky, stern bishops inspecting children's behavior, or shadowy spirits roaming on long, cold nights. Over time, those figures were softened and fused with the generous St. Nicholas, eventually wrapped in a bright red outfit that made him look less like a wandering god and more like a lovable grandparent. So when you see Santa's red suit today, you're looking at more than just clever branding. You're seeing a mashup of ancient winter gods, medieval saints, Victorian artists, and modern advertisers, all stitched together into one character. That coat is as much about old fears and myths as it is about presents under the tree, which is part of what makes Santa feel strangely timeless and a little bit magical. Number 10. Setting Satan on fire. In parts of Guatemala, Advent nights aren't just quiet candlelit prayers. They're loud, colorful, and a little bit terrifying. As December evenings fall, families gather in doorways and along cobblestone streets, waiting for someone much wilder than Santa to show up. From around the corner, men dressed as devils come charging in, horned masks, red costumes, rattling chains and firecrackers. They chase screaming kids up and down the street, but the fear is mixed with giggles and excitement. Everyone knows it's a game, but it still makes your heart race. Behind the chaos is a simple idea. Turn the battle between good and evil into something you can see and feel. The devils stand in for bad choices, temptation, and mischief, while the season of Advent, leading up to Christmas, represents hope, faith, and light. Later, the mood shifts. The devils are defeated, maybe chased out of the neighborhood or symbolically burned in effigy, and the whole community celebrates together. Music starts, food stalls open, and the same kids who were running in fear are now laughing and playing in the plaza. For Guatemalan families, this tradition is more than just a show. It's a vivid childhood memory and a living story passed down each year. Yes, darkness exists, but it doesn't win. In the end, the lights, the laughter, and the people standing together are what stay.
Y tu carita de coqueta con la cara de mi amor. Aquí está.
fiesta por ustedes mismos seguirá.
Number 11. Christmas punches. Boxing Day, celebrated on December 26th, might seem like a simple day to snag post-Christmas deals or enjoy a relaxed break. But its roots are far more complex. Originally, Boxing Day was a time when servants and tradespeople received gifts, or Christmas boxes, from their employers and customers as thanks for their year's work. In Victorian England, this was often the only chance these hard-working people had to visit families and enjoy their own celebrations. It was a rare day off for those who spent Christmas serving others, and the boxes were a tangible expression of gratitude, and perhaps a relief from a year spent mostly in service. But while the generosity was real, darker tales whisper that Boxing Day could sometimes unleash more than goodwill. With social roles briefly reversed, some villages saw rowdy chaos, disputes, and even fights breaking out between classes when the usual order was turned upside down. The day's spirit of gift-giving mingled with the heated realities of social inequality, and once servants and tradespeople tasted freedom and celebration, some struggled to return to their subservient roles. What seems today like a charming tradition was sometimes a time when social tensions crackled as loudly as the winter fires. Today, Boxing Day has evolved into a day of relaxation, sales, and sports. But beneath the surface lies a history of gratitude intertwined with upheaval. Number 12. Don't pull out your Christmas pickle in public. Every holiday season, families across America play a quirky game, hiding a Christmas pickle ornament deep within the branches of their tree. Finding it first means luck, an extra present, or the honor of opening the early gifts. It's a tradition full of fun and mystery. But where did it come from? The Christmas pickle is often said to be of German origin and was hidden in the tree to bring good fortune. But when people explored the old country, they found the story was almost unknown there. The tradition as we know it likely began in the late 19th century in the United States, possibly invented to sell the pickle-shaped glass ornaments that German craftsmen were exporting. In fact, the American town of Berrien Springs has embraced the pickle so enthusiastically it's called the Christmas pickle capital of the world, hosting pickle festivals, parades, and contests. From an uncertain origin, the humble pickle ornament became a beloved symbol of holiday fun and family memories.
Well, as promised, new this morning, the holiday season full of family traditions, from lights to visits with Santa and, of course, decorating the tree. But for some, it's all about the lesser-known seasonal staple that dates back to the 19th century. ABC 57's Mary Callrider takes us to Berrien Springs, where the Christmas pickle was born.
Each year, a lot of children across the globe wake up on Christmas morning and run straight for the gifts under the tree. But some might be looking for something hidden inside the tree instead. The Christmas pickle. Legend has it, whoever finds the disguised decoration gets an extra surprise Christmas morning. But how did such a tradition come to be? We wanted answers, and there was only one place to go. Welcome to the Christmas pickle capital of the world, Berrien Springs.
But what most historians believe is there's a very, very enterprising salesman at Woodworth Department Store was trying to push these beautiful hand-blown glass ornaments and vegetable shapes, and yes, the tomatoes would go and the corn goes, but nobody wants the poor pickle. And likely in order to increase sales, kind of created this, oh, did you know kind of situation, and oh, this would be a great family tradition to add. And
while many believe the Christmas pickle tradition to be from Germany, according to the Berrien County Historical Association, it is an American festivity. For nearly 150 years, families have been hiding pickle ornaments inside their trees after what was believed to be one salesman's push for the pickle. And it is safe to say it stuck. But why is Berrien Springs the home for this harvest?
So there's not 100% certainty from the many sources I've talked to why Berrien Springs got that designation, but we got it, and the town embraced it.
Berrien County has been known for its fruit and vegetable distributors, including the pickle industry. So, Pickle Packers International declared Berrien Springs the pickle capital of the world in the mid-90s. In 1995, the town had its first ever holiday pickle festival parade, which ended up being a 4-day-long year-long event. The fun continued every year until the mid-2000s. That was when the pickle lost its flavor. That is until this past summer, when the seasonal staple made a comeback on the 4th of July. Just like back in the day, the experience is unlike any other. From pickle decorating to a pickle toss, tastings, and even an ice cream social. Of course, the BCHA gift shop and vendor booths are stocked with souvenirs celebrating all things pickle.
But it's fun. It's on the surface it seems really silly because it's a pickle. Like these are the things that go on your hamburgers and you snack on a charcuterie board. But people love it and they get super excited about it, and it's fun to see.
Despite all the uncertainty the past couple years, traditions like this are helping many people power through. And this one is here to stay.
That's one of those traditions that can survive even a pandemic, because most everyone still put up their Christmas tree last year, and that's still something that they could have done, and it's something that makes you smile on Christmas morning, even in a global pandemic, I guess.
Mary Kaltwriter, ABC 57 News.
Number 13. How is this Christmas candy? If you've ever visited a Nordic country during Christmas, you've probably noticed something strange: black licorice everywhere. Salty, chewy, and intensely bittersweet, it's not just a snack, it's a holiday staple. But this divisive treat has roots deeper than modern candy factories. Licorice comes from the root of a plant long used in Nordic folk medicine for coughs, digestion, and colds, practical remedies for harsh winters.
This is licorice, Glycyrrhiza glabra, and it's one of those must-have herbs to have in your garden. Now, we grow it in the polytunnel because we get that extended growing period, and it allows the plant to go to flower, and most importantly for us is to get the seeds from it. As I said, a very good herb to have. It's going to take a couple of years now for you to grow the roots, which is what you use, and they're highly anti-inflammatory and antiviral, so we use it a lot around the house with the kids. And if you want to see more information on the uses, have a look at Marina's post and video on that. But if you want to grow successful licorice, you can grow it outside. It is very tolerant to grow in the Irish climate, but ideally it grows best in the polytunnel. And this is one here which is about 2 years old, and you can see it's got already a nice big root, but it needs to get into the ground. So the trickiest thing with licorice is when it comes up in springtime is that the slugs love all these little shoots. So you really got to mind the plant in springtime, clean around it, make sure there's no weeds. In the polytunnel, keep it dry so that the slugs are less likely to go onto the plant. And then as soon as it's up and it's away, it's fine. And then after about 3 years, 4 years, you'll start to see the flowers and the seeds coming on. So lovely plant to have, and yeah, easy one to grow.
In more modern times, that ancient edge has softened into pure joy. In Iceland, licorice tops crown Christmas Eve feasts. Danes pair it with everything from ice cream to beer. It's divisive for outsiders, but for Nordics, it's home. The taste of family gatherings and a quiet nod to ancestors who believed a little bitterness kept the darkness at bay. Number 14. Deadly Ding Dong. Nothing says Christmas like the cheerful jingle of bells. But long before Rudolph's glowing nose lit up the sky, those bells weren't just for songs and Santa's sleigh. They were tools of survival, to ward off the evil spirits said to stalk travelers through the endless dark of winter nights. Medieval travelers believed malevolent forces lurked in the shadows, demons, witches, or restless spirits waiting to drag the unwary away. The sharp, piercing ring of sleigh bells was their defense, a sound thought to shatter the silence and scare off anything supernatural, much like church bells calling out evil during rituals. Bells served a practical purpose too, announcing a sleigh's approach on silent snow, avoiding accidents. But the superstition ran deep. Engraved with protective symbols, plated in silver for purity, they flaunted status while promising safety from both earthly mishaps and otherworldly threats. What we now hum about so merrily was once a desperate clamor against the winter dark. Number 15. What's with all these witches? In Italy, Santa isn't the only magical being flying through the night sky. Meet La Befana, the witch who's equal parts granny and guardian. This broom-riding old woman swoops down chimneys on January 5th, leaving candy and toys for good kids, but a lump of coal or ashes for the naughty ones. She's the perfect mix of tough love and holiday magic. Befana's story goes way back to pagan roots, maybe linked to Strenia, a Roman goddess of the new year who blessed homes with good fortune. When Christianity arrived, she got a makeover. Now she's the witch who missed the wise men on their way to baby Jesus. Regretful, she flies forever, handing out gifts to every child she meets, hoping one might be the Christ child. Nowadays, towns light up with Befana festivals, parades, sweets, and brooms everywhere. She's no scary hag. Kids leave her wine and snacks by the hearth. And with her broom, she sweeps away the old year's troubles before flying off. It's a reminder that kindness can come in unexpected packages, blending ancient fear with family warmth. Number 16. Medieval Mercy. Mistletoe is often thought of today as a symbol of romance and holiday cheer, but in medieval Europe, its significance ran much deeper and darker. Back then, mistletoe was not just a festive decoration, but a powerful symbol of pardon and mercy. It hung in castles and town halls during Christmas as a living reminder of forgiveness, even for criminals. On this special day, justice gave way to compassion, with pardons granted and grudges set aside beneath the green boughs. The ancient Celts revered mistletoe for its seeming ability to protect and heal, believing it was a magical shield from evil spirits and misfortune. This mystical reputation carried into Christian Europe, where mistletoe became intertwined with the season's rituals. But mistletoe's association with love and light often mixed with its stark role as a protector. Sometimes, to step under it without respect could carry consequences far more serious than a refused kiss. Now, when we hang mistletoe in our homes and share shy kisses beneath it, we unknowingly honor centuries of layered meaning. Justice turned to mercy, fear softened by love, and ancient rituals transformed into moments of human connection and joy. Number 17. Yule Cat Carnage. A gigantic cat stalking snowy fields might sound cute at first, until you hear what it's looking for. In Icelandic folklore, the Yule Cat isn't a cozy house pet. It's a towering, hungry beast that prowls the countryside at Christmas, searching for people who didn't get new clothes for the holiday. According to legend, if you're not wearing at least one fresh garment, the Yule Cat will sniff you out and devour you. It's a terrifying way to make sure no one is forgotten when the winter gifts are handed out. Beneath the horror, there's a very practical heart to this story. Iceland's winters were brutally hard, and everyone on the farm had to work together processing wool, so there'd be enough warm clothing to survive. New clothes at Christmas weren't just presents. They were proof you'd done your share, and a layer of protection against the cold. The Yule Cat became a furry enforcer in parents' stories. If you were lazy, you'd end up with no new clothes and on the monster's dinner menu. In more modern times, the Yule Cat has softened, at least a little. You'll see it in children's books, songs, and giant light installations in Reykjavik, more mascot than menace, but still carrying that old warning. Make sure everyone is warm and cared for before the snow sets in. In a strange way, this murderous cat legend turned fear into generosity, pushing people to share clothes and kindness so no one would face winter alone. Number 18. Salad of the Gods. Christmas hasn't always belonged to the 25th of December, and that date is much less holy calendar fact than strategic choice. Early Christians didn't celebrate the birth of Jesus at all for the first few centuries, and the Bible never gives a specific date, so different ideas floated around for a long time. Only by the 4th century do records show December 25th being used widely in the Western Roman Empire, at a time when leaders were trying to root Christianity into a world still full of powerful pagan traditions. In Rome and across the empire, late December was already packed with huge celebrations. Saturnalia, with its feasting and role reversals, and the later feast of Sol Invictus marked the turning of the year and the return of light after the longest night. Many historians think choosing December 25th allowed Christians to capitalize on that existing energy. Instead of honoring the reborn sun, the focus shifted to the birth of Christ, seen as a different kind of light coming into a dark world. Of course, not everyone agrees it was only about copying pagans. Some early Christian writers tried to calculate Jesus' birth from theological dates, linking his conception to March 25th and counting 9 months forward. Either way, the result was the same. Christmas landed right on top of older solstice season festivals, blending deep winter darkness, fear, and celebration into the DNA of the holiday. So when Christmas lights go up in the darkest days of the year, they're echoing a very old instinct: push back the night with fire, food, and stories. Early Christians didn't erase that impulse, they redirected it. December 25th ended up as a crossroads where pagan solstice rites and Christian theology meet, leaving modern Christmas with roots that are bright on the surface, but tangled with shadows underneath. Number 19. Wash your socks. Every Christmas Eve, millions of kids hang stockings by the fire, eagerly awaiting the treats Santa will leave inside. But this charming tradition is rooted in ancient customs far older than jolly old Saint Nick. Long before stockings became holiday decoration, they were practical everyday shoes, sometimes humble boots or clogs, left outside or by the hearth, awaiting gifts or offerings. In Norse mythology, the god Odin would fly across the sky during winter festivals on his magical horse, Sleipnir. Children left out their shoes filled with hay or carrots to feed the horse, and in return, Odin was said to fill those shoes with gifts or sweets for the good boys and girls. This exchange mingled generosity with a touch of the supernatural. The shoes weren't just vessels for treats, but also places where spirits and magic gathered in the dark winter. By the Victorian era, the Christmas stocking as we know it began to take shape. The stockings hung by the chimney became a cozy family ritual, symbolizing warmth, hope, and the spirit of giving, even for the humblest homes. Illustrations from the time show children's eyes wide with wonder and delight as they discovered nuts, fruit, small toys, and sweets tucked inside. It was a way to bring magic into ordinary life during the darkest, coldest days of the year. In more modern times, the tradition continues to thrive, with stockings filled with surprises for kids of all ages. Whether hung by a fire or another favorite spot, those colorful stockings connect us to centuries of tales about kindness, protection, and hope, reminding us that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest magic. Number 20. A very haunting hunt. On some winter nights, when the wind screams around the corners of houses and the sky flashes with sudden light, older generations in Europe used to say it wasn't just a storm passing overhead. It was the wild hunt, a ghostly cavalcade of riders, hounds, and restless spirits tearing across the clouds, hunting something or someone in the dark. If you were unlucky enough to be caught outside when they rode by, the story went, you might be swept up into their otherworldly chase and never find your way home. For villagers, the wild hunt was more than a spooky story. It was a warning. When winter storms rolled in, you stayed indoors, shutters barred and fires bright. Travelers caught on lonely roads were told to fall flat, avoid making noise, or avert their eyes so the riders wouldn't notice them. The hunt was said to bring bad omens, war, plague, death, or misfortune. So hearing it in the distance felt like the world itself was holding its breath. Nowadays, the myth of the wild hunt still haunts books, games, and movies, but it also explains something very human. How people made sense of terrifying winter nights long before streetlights and weather apps. When you're inside on a stormy evening and the wind rattles the windows, it's easy to understand why they imagined a ghostly army racing across the sky. And knowing the legend gives those dark, howling nights a strange new layer. Part fear, part wonder, and part connection to all the people who once listened to the same storms and pictured the wild hunt riding by. Thank you for checking out this compilation of stories from around the world. If you enjoy videos like this, hit that like, smash that subscribe, and share. Until next time, don't let the orange monster and his minions get you down.